Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we're going to take a moment because it's not on our agenda, but we have a presentation. We have a special guest here with us this evening, Mr. Don Francis, who is a long-time community volunteer, and we want to recognize him this evening with a little gift and a little proclamation. No money, no money. He's doing the universal symbol. Okay, if you want to come up and join me. Welcome. All right, so we have a proclamation for Donald R. Francis in appreciation of his service to the town of Rocky Hill, dated April 18th. So whereas Donald Francis has been a member of the Rocky Hill Democratic Town Committee for 31 years. Whereas Don served as chairman of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board from 1970 to 1994. And whereas Don served as a selectman in the town of Rocky Hill from November 1987 to November 1989, and then from November 1993 to November 2015. And whereas Don was twice elected to the town council and served from November 1989 to November 1993, and whereas Don served as deputy registrar from January 1997 to January 2019, and then served as registrar from January 2019 to February 2022. See, it's a long time he's been with us. Okay, here we go. And whereas Don was appointed to the Redevelopment Agency in January 2006 and still remains in that position today. Don has served as a member of the Rocky Hill AARP Tax Aid Program for 15 years, providing assistance to hundreds of Rocky Hill seniors in preparing their yearly tax forms. And whereas Don has been appointed a Justice of the Peace 11 times and has served since 1981. Don also volunteered a great amount of his time supporting athletics within the town. He worked with the Little League for 30 years, the Rocky Hill Adult Softball Association for 22 years, Rocky Hill High School Basketball for 20 years, as well as the Police Athletic League, which is PAL, Youth Basketball League, and the Rocky Hill Men's Basketball League. And whereas Don was instrumental in the planning and development of numerous athletic initiatives, including the acquisition of Sunnycrest Park, the addition of 3 baseball fields and soccer fields, creating the ice skating pond at Elm Ridge Park, and the lighting of the softball fields at Elm Ridge Park. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Lisa J. Murata, Mayor of the town of Rocky Hill, hereby recognize Don Francis for his outstanding and dedicated service and numerous contributions to the town of Rocky Hill for over 30 years, and call upon all our residents to join me in recognizing Don for his contributions to our town. Thank you, Mr. Francis.
Thank you, Mayor Lisa. Good friend. Obviously, I couldn't have spent all that time doing it without the support from my wife, my family. There's a couple of them here. Peter and Tom's in the back. Marco, you want to talk to them? Who? Oh, Dan, Riley. I didn't see you guys come in. It was a great ride. We enjoyed it. I enjoyed all of it. People say, well, why don't you move south? And I said, I've got too much time invested in Rocky Hill. I know what you guys are doing on the council. It's not a fun job, especially this time of the year when you're working on the budget probably. But I just hope that we did a good job in the registrar's office. I hope that the new people, Tom and Phil and Ed and Angie, can do as good a job as Janet and I and Geraldine did in our time in office. My problem now is finding things to do. And I've already talked to Gina downstairs to see if there's anything she needs me to do. So, but with my son's got a new place at the beach. Going to spend some time down there for probably from beginning of May till October. He doesn't know it yet, but on behalf of my family, thank you to the town of Rocky Hill for supporting us and me. So thank you. And good luck. And good luck to Mr. John. Oh, sorry, John.
Well, here, Don, give you something to do tomorrow. You can figure out how to open this up without ripping up the paper. So that should.
Oh, I got to bring the paper back?
No, you can. No, you can keep it. It's included. So here's a little token of the town's appreciation for all the services that you performed and did. That was listed in Lisa's proclamation, and thank you. No, I'm sorry. Wait till after the budget, maybe. Okay, thank you.
Congratulations.
Good luck.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations.
John Malero's giving you the virtual handshake. Yes, yeah.
Yes.
We will not be offended. We know you all came for Don Francis. So let's just make a quiet exit and then we'll get started. Go ahead. We'll give you a second. You just can't talk in the hallway. Okay, I'm going to move on to public comment. This portion of the meeting is specifically set aside for comments from the public who are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes. Any person interested in providing public comment but cannot attend the meeting should email their written comment to publicmeetings@rockyhillct.gov. So if you want to speak, please come up and state your name and address for the record. And we're going to try to move our crowd out. Crowd control.
It's like school.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Henry Vassal. I'm the president of the Rocky Hill Education Foundation. I actually was hoping to get up here a few minutes sooner because, as Don Francis said, he needed something to do. We are looking for board members, and we are also looking for volunteers, which I'll tell you about. Very exciting time. May 14th is our 5K fundraiser. It's our big fundraiser for the Education Foundation, the Rocky Hill Education Foundation. If you can volunteer, please come out 7 a.m. The race will begin promptly at 9. If you can't volunteer, I understand you have things to do. You can go on Facebook to the Education Foundation. It's the Education Foundation. You can make donations, or you could nominate a friend to be on our board as we're looking for members. For those of you who don't know what the Rocky Hill Education Foundation is about, it's a foundation that's 100%, it's a nonprofit, and 100% of our donations go back to the schools in the form of grants to help buy supplies that otherwise the budget couldn't fund for whatever reason. And we also give scholarships to graduating seniors. So 100% of all money raised goes back to the schools and the students. Like I said, this is our big fundraiser, so we really need it to be a success, especially after a few years of COVID where we weren't allowed to have any fundraising opportunities. So May 14th, it's a Saturday, 7 a.m., leaving from Stevens, right? No. GMS. Yes, sorry about that. It's leaving from the middle school, and don't feel like you need to actually run in the marathon. Plenty of people take 2 to 3 hours. You can come and register and go home. We won't tell anybody. That's no problem at all. But there are a few people who are going to finish in about 13 minutes flat. I know a few of you counselors have come forward and already offered to volunteer. Mayor Murata, every year after year, volunteers. We appreciate it. Anybody can come, though, like I said, and if you can't make it, please consider making a donation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vassal.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is Tony Palazzolo from George Road in Rocky Hill. I am here tonight as a citizen who has several questions. According to our town charter, the council should keep for public inspection a journal which shall be the official record of its meetings, and this is filed in the town clerk's office. Yes, I visited this record last week, and I did not find a full council vote on the town manager's one-year contract. If I missed this, I apologize. But if not, then was this covered someplace else, like an executive session? At any rate, our charter's section 412 states, the council shall have the power by affirmative votes of its membership by resolution in its sole discretion, with or without cause, to remove or suspend the town manager, and shall have the power by a majority of the full membership in its sole discretion, for whatever cause it shall deem sufficient, to remove or suspend by resolution any person appointed by the council to any office or position. I would suggest, in order to be compliant, we need to have actual votes. Having the 6 majority is not a substitute. Again, there should be a record per rule of Robert's Rules of Order. I understand, per the paragraph from the charter, that you do not have to provide a reason. So after 23 years of service, you, the council, have no obligation. Does the employee have any rights? And I think this is an important question. I'm not seeing this coming out. Politeness in this case is not an acceptable format. Who wants to work under these archaic conditions? Given that the manager is a standalone position, what protection is he or she offered? Which one of you would want to tell your families that this is how you ended your service? I suspect several of you who sit here tonight would not rush, as you are owners of your own businesses with no one to throw you out. I understand that the removal and suspension section of our charter speaks to the council by first suspending and promptly serving that person with a resolution with any reasons, if any. Are you confusing a good employee with someone with just cause with our case? My next question is, how are you going to record this in your minutes without following parliamentary procedure again? You are advertising for a vacancy, but it is like the perfect mystery, with no resignation and no retirement. You have a vacancy, but no body. This is because there was no full council vote taken and nothing recorded. The clever closet did not have to do it because the contract ended. So do you have a resignation recorded? That's my question to you, because I couldn't find it. I did not see one. Anyone applying for the job needs to have their eyes open. My last question is whether the town charter was reviewed by anyone familiar with legislative law. You see in the state statute, section 9-167A, minority representation provides an exception below our chart showing 9 membership. It states that the provision number 2, which is below it, of this section shall not apply, A, to any such board, commission, committee, or body whose members are elected wholly or partially on the basis of geographical division of the state or a political subdivision. If I understand it, Rocky Hill would qualify as a geographical division of the state, as would any of our state towns. This would negate our current setup of our town charter. Now, I'm leaving this open to you. I do not have legal background. I've called numerous offices at the state, try to get a straight answer out of them. You might get something that says, our lines, you've reached so-and-so and our mail basket is full, call back later type thing. Anyway, I did get one today, and she said to me, yes, it sounds like you're correct. Anyway, Rocky Hill would qualify, if I understand it, Rocky Hill would qualify as a geographical division of the state, as would any of our state towns. This would negate our current setup of our town charter. Perhaps it is time to have someone who has a specialty of municipal or procedural law review Rocky Hill's charter. As a result of this 6-9 and 5-4 setups, the popularity contest is not allowing for consensus of ideas from our two-party system. This, folks, explains why the minority has a lesser participation in our meetings and we are losing democracy. The council, once installed, should run for the citizens of the town, not as a checklist for the party in power. And I do not mean that sarcastically. I mean that I'd like to see more consensus, more give and take. I've had at least 3 people come up to me and say, what's the matter with that other side of the council? They don't talk very much. So thank you very much. I'll be quiet.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nisha Patel, residing at 40 Countryside Drive, Rocky Hill. I'm currently a volunteer at BAPS Charities based out of Newington. So as a nonprofit organization, we lead various events throughout the year, locally as well as around the world, in the categories of humanitarian relief, educational support, environmental protection and preservation, health and wellness, and community empowerment. So locally, just last year, we were able to donate to Newington Food Pantry about 1,500 non-perishable food items, and we were also able to donate a teeny tiny amount of $1,000 to the humongous mission of Rocky Hill Education Foundation. So I'm here to invite Rocky Hill Mayor and the Town Council members and everyone else present here in the audience to our annual event In the Joy of Others Walk Run 2022 on May 22nd at 3 p.m. So the walk is organized to celebrate the most fundamental element of any community, families, and it inspires tens of thousands of people to carry forth the spirit of service. So we are, once again, this year we are going to support Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Foundation, and our local beneficiaries are Newington Police Department and the Newington Fire Department. So the walk will be around just about 2 miles long, and we will start at the Newington Police Department. And please do note that our date did change from 15th of May 2022 to the following Sunday, 22nd May 2022. So this is a family event, and it's open to all. So please feel free to share it with your family and friends. The registration to the event is also free, and anyone who can come to our walk, they can register at our website, which is bapscharities.org/Hartford. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? It's so so exciting to have people from the public.
At Chickarella, 40 Riverview Road. Mayor, I have comments about new business that is on the agenda. Should I speak now or hold it for that then?
So you know that I cannot engage in dialogue with you, so I will say that we are in public comment, and your comments are limited to 2 minutes. I can give you 3. But this will be the only opportunity for the public to come up to the podium to speak.
Thank you. I just wanted. So my name is Ed Ciccarello, 40 Riverview Road, Rocky Hill. Tonight I am speaking as a member of the Sustainable Rocky Hill team. In February of 2021, this council voted unanimously to join Sustainable CT to begin the paradigm shift of moving our town towards sustainability. To that end, I want to bring to your attention action step number 9 of Sustainable CT, strategic waste management. This action step, this best practice, encourages our town to reduce waste, recycle additional materials, compost organics, and develop a food waste prevention campaign. All of these action steps, this paradigm shift, can be achieved if you, as a council, apply for and hopefully receive this grant from DEEP that we are speaking about tonight. We can increase the sustainability of Rocky Hill. Back in September of 2021, this council hired a waste management consultant, Pam Roach, who is here tonight, to help solve our town's waste management problem. In that same month, Kristen Brown presented to you the DEEP grant process and a solution to our waste management issue. Because of their expert input, this council unanimously voted to send a letter of interest for the DEEP grant. You now have to finish what you started. I am here to encourage you to apply for the DEEP waste management grant. Through this grant and beyond, you would save the taxpayers about $300,000 a year. We would reduce our town's trash by 3,000 tons. 70% of waste would be diverted. Food would be separated from trash and transported in-state 15 miles to Southington to create compost and biofuel. The alternative? Sending our trash 700 miles to Ohio, where 100% of it is dumped in a landfill and spews out harmful methane, which is 30 times worse than CO2. That would be an environmental injustice. I understand that some of you are concerned that the infrastructure for this new system might not be there. Some of you might like to wait until everything is in place, and you are concerned about educating the public about new behaviors. I say to you, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We can and must do this for the health of our planet and, without exaggeration, the human race. You, me, we are walking on the path of sustainability. It is dotted with both risk and reward. Mayor Murata and Councilor Thoreau have been leading on this trash management journey for over a year. Pam Roach and Kristen Brown have been and continue to be our expert tour guides. I am one of the many concerned people along the road who are rooting for this change because we see the good a new system can bring, and we also fear the harm if we don't change our behavior. Seek the reward for your hard work and years of walking down the road of research. Take a step for the planet. Take this step for your kids, for my kid. Apply for the grant. Let's go, Rocky Hill.
Good evening. Sandy Kelly, 25 Tollgate Road, Rocky Hill. In following up what Ed is saying, and you will hear statistics. Unfortunately, I'm going to talk to statistics that you haven't heard yet. But trust me that they will bear out what we're talking about. I know that in addressing the waste reduction issue, primary concern is transportation costs. We're focusing on the distance that haulers have to travel to dispose of the trash. We know that the capacity to handle new collections is diminishing with Mira leaving and trying to find, we have one other option in Hartford to take our trash at this point. are currently permitted facilities, and that's an important term, permitted, because they have to follow regulations, our currently permitted facilities will struggle to handle the volume, especially with mirror closing. That's why we're shipping trash across the country. However, we can look at this as a supply and demand issue. You're business people. You understand when there's a demand, we need to have a supply. The demand for facilities exists. In this case, the supply would be constructing new facilities. DEEP is already getting questions about permitting regulations for new facilities. The interest is there. It's just a matter of time before new collecting and sorting methods are implemented across the state. We're probably ahead of the curve here, which is admirable. I'm proud to think that we might be. But being ahead of the curve means you don't always have what you need in place. I bring up this look at the future of recycling in Connecticut because that's how we have to look at Rocky Hill. The future. Concerns over the next budget or the next budget in 3 years down the road are easy, but we have to look further out. You'll hear statistics on the long-term benefits and cost savings this evening. Being a visionary, in this case with our garbage, means taking a leap forward. If you believe in the ultimate goal. Let's look at just the few well-known visionary successes. The most obvious is Tesla. The company was started in 2003. In 2008, the first Tesla rolled off the line. You probably remember there were problems meeting production deadlines, meeting selling quotas, problems with the vehicles, and just the way they were running or not running. We looked at Elon Musk as a rich eccentric and kind of dismissed this kind of car. Well, Elon Musk is still a rich eccentric, but there are Teslas everywhere. We don't even look twice. They just are. Look at data centers. For monitoring or mining the blockchain of cryptocurrency, I don't pretend to understand that, but I can say the words. Nobody understood it or believed in it. It's kind of like science fiction talk. But now states across the country are wooing these data centers because there's money to be made. Connecticut is wooing the data centers. We almost had somebody in West Hartford with the Yukon facility, the West Hartford branch, fell through. But we were certainly excited, and we were tooting our horn about that. Solar panels. Going off the grid, what's with that? Using the sun for power, it was a little foreign. Solar farms are everywhere, including Rocky Hill. And then maybe a more mundane example is specialty restaurants. You used to have to hunt to find a vegetarian item on a menu. Now a restaurant wouldn't dare not offer them. You have strictly vegetarian restaurants. You have Ion in Middletown that is strictly vegan because they were visionaries. They saw there was a need out there, and they stepped forward ahead of the next person. So I give these examples of ideas that were considered questionable and even risky a decade ago. Now they're a part of our everyday life. Waste reduction falls in this category. Folks may question it. You may worry about changing your ways. Oh my gosh, we have to use 2 different colored bags, and it's a hassle, and I don't really care. I just want to throw it out there. But education and gradual early success, we can make it Rocky Hill's norm. It goes beyond the dollars and cents involved. It goes to our land use, our air pollution, our sustainability. Mayor Murata champions sustainable CT for Rocky Hill. This, beginning this waste reduction, is the absolute embodiment of sustainable Rocky Hill. I urge you to sign the application and apply for this grant. Thank you.
Stephanie Hennigan, 9 Maxwell Avenue Drive. I've lived a lot of places. It's my 4th house in town. I'm not too sure what to make about our human species. I kind of question us as a species. We polluted a river in Ohio with toxins and solutions until it burned, flamed up and burned, before we decided that maybe we should clean up the rivers. Many cases of cancers were reported among the residents of Love Canal area before chemical companies were told to shut down their dumping. It took Superfund operation 21 years to clean it up. I moved into Rocky Hill with my husband and our first child in 1969. The dump, we call them landfills now, was in full swing and probably had been considered the answer. Let's just bury it. I didn't pay too much attention to it. However, when it came down to close it, cover it up, I was very aware of all the serious problems. All materials were thrown in. We weren't even recycling glass. The organic materials that had been buried there produced methane gas that created pockets of flame that burned. I talked to a fireman today. He said, you never knew what color the flames were going to be the next time you went down there. Gas spontaneously combusted and burned for a long time. He couldn't remember quite how long. If there's one town that should not even begin to consider putting more waste and organic materials into a landfill anywhere in the country, it should be us. We know that the methane is so dangerous. The greenhouse gases are going up, and the quality of the ozone layer is compromised. We should not be thinking about, but it won't be in our backyard. And it's not going to be our river this time if we send it out to Pennsylvania or Ohio. We all live on this one planet, and we are all connected. California wildfires cloud our skies. A man sneezes in Wuhan, China, and months later, people by the hundreds of thousands are dying over the whole planet. We all breathe the same air. We all live under the same ozone layer. This landfill is not the answer. So what is being proposed and explained explained here tonight is a simple program that costs less and would be better for our environment. Why would we not want to at least apply for the possibility of the future? And speaking of future, we have some of the future citizens here tonight too.
Hi, I'm Sia Patel, 25 Marshalls Road. I'm the president of the Rocky Hill High School Environmental Club, and we're here to support applying for the bill and making Rocky Hill more eco-friendly.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kamal Shah, and I reside at 24 Murphy Drive. I'm here with both of the co-officers of the Environmental Club at Rocky Hill High School, and as students that are concerned with environmental issues that have families that share our concerns, we would like to state our support for the DEEP grant. Thank you.
I'm Abigail Harding at 59 Tall Pines Lane. I'm also part of the Environmental Club, and we are here representing our two environmental clubs at Rocky Hill High School, and all of us share grave concerns for the environment. And it's programs like these that we want to support as an effort to get closer to the world that we want to live in. Thank you.
Can we get you some water, Mrs. Palazzolo? We have tons of water. Will it help you? Here. Okay. Anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard? Well, you know, the council is not allowed to engage in any type of conversation, but if we could, we would say how tremendously proud we are of our students who come forward, because we don't often see that happen. Okay. So we are going to move on to Section 3, Appointments and Resignations.
Madam Mayor, before we move on, I think we might have several motions to change the agenda, one of which would be that I would make a motion to move up new business A, discussion possible action solid waste recycling grant proposal, Kristen Brown, to, I suppose, right after appointments and resignations. And do we have the full team here for that presentation? So do we have anybody on cue? So we'll ride with that until he posts on. Okay.
I think he's available.
He's in queue? Okay. So that's the motion?
Yep. Madam Mayor, I also have a motion with respect to the agenda. I move to amend.
You have to vote.
I'll second.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad.
I'll second the.
Second the
Is there
motion.
any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we're gonna, because I feel like this is gonna be lengthy. We're gonna have the Kristen crew, and then Councilor O'Sullivan.
Yes, now, second motion with respect to the agenda, I move to amend new business to add item B, which is a discussion and possible action item concerning the town possibly entering into a contract with SGR, which is Strategic Government Resources, which is an executive recruitment agency with respect to the town manager position.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Madam Mayor, I have a motion as well. Motion to amend the agenda to add a subsection C to new business discussion possible action, Sustainable Rocky Hill Task Force.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any abstained? Okay. All right, okay. So let's move then to new business, section A. Discussion possible action, solid waste recycling grant proposal. And we welcome Kristen Brown, who is a consultant for the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. And we are also welcoming a representative from DEEP, who is joining us remotely.
It should be Chris Nelson. He should be on.
Here comes the screen. Da-da-da.
I am on. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Nelson. Welcome to our meeting.
Okay.
So Chris Nelson
Thank
is
you.
on. And then we also have with us this evening Pamela Roach, who is our energy and waste consultant. Thank you. So welcome back.
Thank you. And Chris is going to speak first.
Okay. Thank you, Kristen. I'll just kind of provide a little bit of background before I turn it over back to Kristen. My name is Chris Nelson. I am an employee of the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection, Energy and Environmental Protection. I currently supervise our Sustainable Materials Management Group, and we are focused on solid waste management and sustainable materials management. Just a little background, and one of the reasons we're here meeting and discussing this tonight. As many of you know, Connecticut is facing a waste crisis. Connecticut and the other Northeast states are facing a waste capacity crisis. As I'm sure people are aware, Connecticut's waste-to-energy facilities are all aging, and the Mira facility in Hartford is currently planning to cease operation this summer. Connecticut has long embraced the goal of self-sufficiency for managing the waste that our state generates. Unfortunately, with the loss of in-state capacity, more and more of Connecticut's waste will end up getting shipped off to out-of-state landfills. This lack of disposal capacity will also result in the rise of tipping fees to get rid of this trash. This concern about the waste crisis prompted the creation of the Connecticut Coalition for Sustainable Materials Management in 2020. DEEP began to hear from a number of towns, and some town chief elected officials came in for 2 or 3 meetings with the commissioner and other DEEP staff. Mayor Murata, I think you were probably at least part of at least one of those first meetings. So that process, CCSMM, began in 2020. Currently, we have 95 Connecticut towns, including Rocky Hill, are signed on to this process. In early 2021, a CCSMM menu of options was finalized with recommendations on how to reduce waste in the state. An implementation of unit-based pricing programs for trash and diversion of food scraps from trash were 2 of the major policies highlighted in that menu to reduce the amount of trash generated in the state. That in turn led to last summer, at the end of the legislative session in 2021, $5 million was allocated to DEEP by the Connecticut legislature to provide sustainable materials management grants to municipalities and regional groups such as COGS. We're looking to implement new programs that would significantly reduce the amount of waste that they were sending off for disposal. A focus on projects that include both organics diversion and or unit-based pricing was a focus of the grants. DEEP strongly believes that programs that utilize both of those options will have the highest amount of success in reducing the amount of waste generated. There was also a focus on projects that have, as our commissioner says, a pathway to permanence after the initial pilot phase ends. So we want to make sure that we're kind of investing and working with towns to get pilot programs going, that there's a plan in place to kind of continue those on and expand, hopefully, to town-wide programs at some point after the pilot phase. This grant process is currently underway, and it has been very competitive to date, with a number of applications received from Connecticut municipalities and regional groups. As a reminder, May 9th is the deadline for applications. Many towns have expressed interest in trying out their variation of the currently ongoing, put in quotes, Meriden model, which focuses on co-collection of bagged food scrap and bagged trash. In this pilot, the bags are collected and sorted at a facility. The food scrap goes to one of the facilities that can recycle it, such as Quantum Biopower in Southington. And then the reduced amount of remaining trash then goes for disposal as it would have otherwise. We have been hearing that some detractors to this pilot are making claims that co-collection does not work because the bags break when collected in the collection vehicles. Based on what we've seen so far from the Meriden pilot, bag breakage has not been an issue, and we're looking forward to other towns pursuing this this approach for maybe a way of collecting food scraps and trash together to cut down on collection costs, but then allow the organics to be pulled off and processed in a way that's more sustainable. With that, unless there are any questions for me, I will turn it over to Kristen to go into a little bit more detail.
Questions for Chris? No? Good. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for having me tonight. My name is Kristen Brown. I am a consultant and I work with DEP. Currently, the project I'm working on is providing technical assistance and also outreach to municipalities that want to participate in this grant process. So I've been working with the town for a couple of months now, and Pam Roach, along with all other 30 some odd towns that are either applying or have already applied for the grant, and in designing a program that best meets your needs. So I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on that program now, but please feel free to stop me if you have any questions. I'm going to hope that I can do this right. Sorry, guys. Does anyone know how to down?
Does anybody know whether to use the remote or the keyboard?
Oh, any students know how to do this, maybe? Whatever I did something, so. Oh, well, now I turned it off. Maybe this is it. Okay. All right, great. Thank you so much. All right. So first, just to reiterate a little bit about what Chris Nelson said, and this gives you a bit of a graphic. The state of Connecticut does have a capacity issue right now. It's not just the state of Connecticut, though it is really the entire United States. In the year 2000 approximately, we had about 6,000 landfills in the U.S. Today, we only have about 1,200 landfills, so landfills continue to decrease. The reason is because no one wants a landfill in their town. So when the landfill is full, it's really, really hard to get an additional cell permitted, and it's an especially hard process to get a new landfill sited. Likewise, waste-to-energy facilities, or similar to what the Mira facility is, it's very difficult to get a new waste-to-energy facility sited for similar reasons. There are about 75 waste-to-energy facilities remaining in the entire United States. 5 of them are in Connecticut. One of them is closing. That's Mira. You have 4 remaining after that. The technically good life of a waste-to-energy facility is about 30 years. So all but one waste-to-energy facility in the U.S. is over 32 years old. So all of our facilities are aging, which means it just becomes a bit more costly. They have to be maintained differently, and over time, these other facilities will also eventually close. So we are facing a capacity crisis across the U.S. It's especially evident in New England. You can see some of those, the first chart there, looking at landfill capacity decreasing for those landfills that are remaining in New England and in New York State. So you can see that as those facilities close, the waste is going to be shipped further and further away, which obviously makes additional cost. So every state in the U.S., and again, I'm a consultant, so I work for the state of Connecticut, but I also work in other states. Everyone is looking at better materials management and the idea of a circular economy. What can you do to keep your waste or resources local and turn those resources into new products that create new jobs, that create energy, and so on, such as recycling your food waste either through anaerobic digestion, which creates energy, or through composting, or through both. As Chris also mentioned, there are two key strategies to reducing trash that we're aware of in the U.S. This is an area, again, I've been doing this for about 33 years. I'm as old as those incinerators. Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but yeah. So the two key things to do here are unit-based pricing, which is a form of paying as you go for what you throw away, and food waste diversion. This is just a chart that looks at, in 1990, the average U.S. per capita person threw away about 900 pounds per person per year. Today in Connecticut, you're throwing away about 740 pounds per person per year. This is about the U.S. average as well. During this, the past 30 years or so, we focused on things like the bottle bill, which you have in Connecticut, types of extended producer responsibility, lots of recycling campaigns, et cetera. So we've managed to reduce the trash that we throw away by some, but we have a lot further to go. There are about 550 communities in New England, the Northeast, from New York up, 550 that have unit-based pricing or pay-as-you-throw as part of their system. The concept behind pay-as-you-throw is similar to what they do in Stonington. They also do it in Mansfield, Connecticut. You have two in Connecticut that have this program. The idea is that you pay by the trash bag as you throw it away. The price of the trash bag includes the cost of the bag itself and also some of the cost of disposal, or all of the cost of the disposal, depending on how you want to price it. We see, average trash bag costs about 30 cents to make the bag and get it out to the supermarkets, and then you see pricing anywhere between 75 cents and $3, depending on how much you want to add to that bag. What we're recommending here is that you look at unit-based pricing and you sort of step into it so that you're not actually charging for the bags in the first year, and I'll get into that in a minute. So unit-based pricing is what Stonington does. Stonington will start a pilot in a couple of months, and they will be adding food scrap collection for every household. We expect that they'll go down from 386 pounds per capita down to about 225 pounds per capita. So when you think about this across your whole population, as you look at the future of moving that trash out of state, you have a lot less volume to move, the more of these programs that you implement. This is just a look at, you can think about this as your town, you can think about it as the state of Connecticut, but the total waste is the blue. There are different programs that have been talked about and tried when it comes to food scrap diversion. So for those communities that have transfer stations or the ability for food scrap collection drop-off, there are probably at this point, maybe Chris knows better than me, but maybe 8 or 9 in Connecticut, and certainly that's a growing number. If every single community had a food scrap drop-off program and every single community did 10 times better than the best community is doing today in Connecticut, we could reduce the trash by 1%. So it's something you can do. It's something you can talk about. It's an inexpensive way to begin to get diversion and begin to educate residents about food scraps. But a drop-off program is a difficult one to actually get any momentum on because you have to put your food scraps in your car and bring it someplace to drop off, and it's a lot of extra work. So it's difficult to get high diversion. Something else that's happening in the state, and that's happening throughout New England and growing, is the idea of voluntary curbside collection. So there are some haulers out there that are happy to come to your house to pick up your food scraps. It's an expensive proposition, sort of runs anywhere from about $12 to $15 a month to $30 a month. So extra cost, but residents, but in looking at that, if we really, really pushed out the idea of voluntary curbside collection, residents paid for their own. If we did a bang-up job and got 10% of homes to sign up for it, we might get 3% diversion. So again, it's a costly proposition, and it's going to take time, and it isn't necessarily going to get us a big bang there for the buck, for the amount that it costs. There's also the idea of an individual curbside collection contract between the municipality and a collection collector, a company that would collect those food scraps. Looking at Portland, Maine, which is one of the best programs that I've seen that doesn't already have unit-based pricing, you might be able to get a 15% diversion. So that's great, but it is going to run around $10 or $12 a month per household, so it's still a significant cost, but you could get some bang for your buck there. You could get some diversion. The last one is the idea of coupling curbside food waste collection, a way to collect that food, with unit-based pricing, and you're going to get around a 68% diversion. In Rocky Hill, because you're a little bit better than the average, you might get as much as a 70%, around a 70% diversion. That's what I would expect. There are two ways you can collect. Again, you can have a separate collection vehicle come around and collect, or you can try something called co-collection. This is something that they've been doing in Europe. These are pictures that I took before the pandemic. I actually went on a waste tour. It was called Women in Waste and Wine. If anyone wants to join, you're welcome to. We went to Sweden, France, and Belgium to look at the trash, and it was a really, really cool experience, I will say. And we looked at a lot of co-collection, and that's the idea of saying, why put another truck on the road to pick up another fraction of waste? Instead, let's put a couple of fractions together in the same truck, just put it in a color-coded bag. Everything is optically sorted, so they don't use human beings, but it's an optical eye that picks out the right color, and then debags the material. When recyclables are collected, the bags are actually recycled. When it's food scraps, those bags are squeezed out like toothpaste tubes, and all the food comes out. So it's a really cost-effective way to get the food waste out of the stream. As Chris Nelson mentioned, there's a food. These are just some of my pictures. There's a food scrap collection pilot happening now as we speak in Meriden, Connecticut. They applied last year for a small grant to pilot this. They're piloting it in only 10 households, or 1,000 households, but it's working really well. So the idea behind the pilot that we're looking at for Rocky Hill, which is a town-wide pilot, not 1,000 homes, but the whole town, is going to be really similar to this. All of the residents for the 4-month period in Meriden received 2 orange garbage bags for every week of the program, and those garbage bags are 13 gallons, so like your typical tall kitchen trash bag. And they were orange, they say trash. And then they received 1 8-gallon food scrap bag. And that's smaller because your food actually shrinks, even though it may go in if your lettuce is fluffy over a couple days, the food actually shrinks there in the bag. So 1 8-gallon bag for food scraps. They put it in their trash cart, as they do today with their regular trash. The trash is collected, and it's sent to a place called HQ Dumpster in Southington, where we've been sorting it on the floor. We've learned a lot about the food in Southington, in Meriden. We've learned about the behavior by household because the bags were all uniquely barcoded, so we can understand who's doing it right, how they're doing it. So it's really helped us to learn a lot about food waste collection and about this concept of unit-based pricing. The idea of unit-based pricing is if they need another bag, they have to ask for another orange bag or another green bag. So we're able to track, who's able to reduce their trash down into those 2 bags. The good news is almost no one needs extra bags, so that's good. So everybody's been reducing their trash. These are just a couple of pictures. It's really not a real pleasant experience to go there, but you can see the food bags in green, the orange bags in are there behind the commissioner. And this is one of our great employees who, God bless him, picks up those trash bags one at a time by hand. The good news is there is a company, Country Disposal, that is located in Wallingford. They have purchased it's a semi-automated piece of equipment. It's not automated like what I saw in Sweden and Belgium and France, but it is semi-automated, so it does still require hand labor, but you don't have to, like these guys are, bend over, pick it up, and move it. It's actually done with conveyor belts, and people are moving the bags from belt to belt, so it's a little bit more automated. And it's perfect because we have, out of the 26 applicants so far for the grant, a good number of those are looking at doing co-collection as their pilot project. So the material can run through this system and easily be separated. The other really good news to this is we've had so much interest from municipalities that we've also begun to get interest from companies, companies that want to come and build sortation systems similar to what I saw in Europe. So everything that the commissioner has been doing at DEEP has begun to really attract the infrastructure that we're looking for. So I'm just going to go whip through these, but these are available after. So this is a lot of numbers, and and these are estimates, right? Because I can take what we've learned from Meriden so far. I can look at all the other 550 unit-based pricing programs across the country, look at other food waste collection systems, and try to make some educated guesses. But basically, what we're looking at in a pilot program, the DEEP grant funds would cover all of your expenses, so you really have no additional expense. So you would end up with some net savings there. So that's year one, your pilot year, which could be rolled over into helping residents with additional free bags in years to come. It could be savings that the town uses for something else, some sort of education related to waste reduction. Year 2 through year 4, until we can, get to some sort of automated sortation, even with the logistics, which I think some of you may have talked about, which are a little bit awkward in that you would go to Wallingford before you would then ship the rest of your trash out of state. So you're sort of doing this zigzag with your waste. Even with those logistical costs, you still get around a $300,000 a year savings by engaging in this program. This is another way of looking at it. The gray line really relates to a separate collection route if you wanted to try that. The blue line is your status quo based on your current tipping fees, and then the orange line is what co-collection looks like, over the next, from 2024 through 2027. So there is a net savings, significant savings to trying this pilot. The pilot is a pilot, it's a 1-year pilot. So if after the 1 year you don't like it, or you get residents saying, I don't want to separate my food waste, I don't like this, or you get, pushback on the idea of paying as they go for trash bags in years to come, that's a decision that you can make, toward the middle of the pilot, you can begin making that decision. But I do urge you to try and apply for the pilot, because if you did get the funding, I've been in waste again 33 years. When people try these type of programs, they really, really do like them, and you really do gain support after that. I also encourage you to try the pilot, because I feel as though the more pilots that move forward in Connecticut, the more likely we have to get a really good, robust infrastructure that will help cut down these costs and provide additional options in the future. I think I might have, so this was the other slide here, just sort of looking at, if you don't try the pilot and you just go ahead and wait and watch some of the other communities try the pilot, and sort of stay on the fence to decide what to do, it is about 1 million ton miles, which doesn't mean so much. Where it really, really means a lot is the environmental impact. So if you look at the current system, it's about 5,000 tons of residential trash that you all would have to ship out of state, assuming it's going someplace in Pennsylvania. That's about 1.5 million ton miles. If you reduce your trash using the unit-based pricing and the food scrap diversion, you're only shipping about 1,500 tons out of state in that distance. So you're really saving about 1 million ton miles, which is a significant carbon impact. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Kristen.
Questions? Oh, Go ahead. Yeah.
So the food is what causes the methane releases. So that 1,500 tons that would be going later wouldn't be including the food. So you're really, that 5,000 tons is what's really, emitting into the environment. I wanted you to go back to your slide with the 1% version, that 1.5. Can you go back to your slide?
Yeah, or maybe.
So the other thing I wanted to mention is
You have to wait and talk into the microphone, or else we won't hear you.
So the slide that Kristen was showing, and she'll put it back up here right now, about 1% diversion versus 5% diversion when you are implementing programs like what I used to do when I worked for the town of Hamden. I had given away over 100 composters every year, backyard composters, but only fruit and vegetables go in there. You can't put in your meats and your bones and your fish and your shells and all of that, when you could put all that into these food scrap bags. And the other thing about the food in the trash bags is they're stronger than the regular white bags that we put in right now for our trash that often break. So it's much neater in the end, and it's easier to separate. I will go back to when I was working for the town of Hamden, all kinds of programs. Myself and the recycling coordinator of Middletown, Kim O'Rourke, if any of you know her, she and I over the years, and again probably 30 years, have worked on so many different programs. Okay, from backyard composting to the food scraps at the transfer station we were going to start looking at, and all of those things together, including my Earth Day celebration in Hamden that drew 4,000 people, and we educated them. 1% diversion. Kim and I were so crushed. We were like, "Oh, Kristen, you're killing us." And Kristen, you're very modest. Okay, you've been doing this for 33 years, but she knows more about this than anybody in the entire country. Probably, I don't want to say the world, that's too much, but you're top in the world. I mean, really, she's been doing it 33 years and was in Sweden and all over the place. So definitely knows more about it than anybody in the country. So this is, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
So,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely more. I know more about trash than I do about the PowerPoint and how to make it work. Any questions for anyone?
I think before we get started, I think if we can just sort of lay out a format so it runs smoothly. We'll work from Councilor Thoreau down the line. And before we do that, could you just explain to the council and to the residents, what does a typical trash day look like for them now with our current company that we're using, and now if we were to implement this?
Yeah, so what you would do is through the pilot grant, you'll receive the bags for free. It's likely that you will receive a packet in the mail, kind of similar. I think you did Simple Recycling, the pink textile bag. You'll receive a packet in the mail with 2 food waste bags, and you will, on that packet, there'll either be a coupon for the supermarket, whatever our supermarket partners are that we pick. I don't know. We work with all the supermarkets on all of these programs, so it could be if you have Stop and Shop, Whole Foods, whoever is in town, you'll be able to go and redeem the remaining bags that you need, either through a coupon or through a mobile app download. So that way you can get your 104 trash bags and 52 food bags, for the year. If you need additional bags, they would be available at cost at those supermarkets as well. So in Meriden, for the pilot, we're actually hand delivering out, so we know how many people need extra bags. But for a whole town, it's going to be, prohibitive to do that. And it's really prohibitive with all the 26 grants to be able to hand deliver the bags out. So we will have some supermarket partners where you can purchase them. It will be at cost, so they'll be purchased for this. The trash bag will be around 35 cents, 30 to 35 cents, and the green food bag will be 20 to 25 cents, something in that range. From what we've learned again about the pilot we're doing so far, almost no one will need extra bags, but should you need some extra bags, they'll be available. They'll be in little 5-packs, so you only have to buy 5 at a time. You might only need 5 for the whole year. It will be a savings for most residents because there's no need to use a regular garbage bag with this program. You're going to have 2 tall kitchen bags, your food and your single food bag. The food bag, we recommend you probably keep it under a sink with a closed lid. Part of the grant, we have some buckets available that have lids that could go under a sink or in a pantry to keep the odor down from the food. But most people will not need any extra bags of either color.
Thank you. But I meant physically. So we bring it up, and then who's taking it and where are they taking it?
So you would just take your trash, just like normal, put it out in your cart. When you're done, push your cart to the curb. Your current trash hauler will pick up the food. Then the trash hauler, again, we'd have to decide. I have funds in the budget that we've budgeted for to get the trash. Either the hauler himself will bring it to Wallingford, or we could arrange for a large container to be placed someplace, Rocky Hill Transfer Station, where the hauler can drop off, and then it can be picked up to be taken to country. It'll be sorted. The food will come out, and the food will end up going to Quantum. The remaining trash will come back to wherever your disposal facility is. When we started this process, you were at Mira, so now you're potentially someplace else. But wherever that location is, the remaining garbage will come to them, and then if it's going out of state to Pennsylvania or wherever it's going, it will go from there. If it's going still to Mira in the beginning, then it'll be dropped at Mira.
Okay, Councilor Thoreau.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. First of all, when would the grants be awarded? So what would be our start date that we would begin the pilot?
So if Chris is on, I'll let him answer. In
roughly, I mean.
So I think we're hoping to, once we go through and get the list of approved grant requests approved by the commissioner, we'll have to enter into a contract process with each town. And it does take a little time going back and forth between municipalities and our business office to get a final contract in place. But I would think, a lot of towns are aiming to get actual projects going, in the summer, maybe the beginning of the next fiscal year, potentially a little bit earlier, depending on how quickly the grants are approved and the contracts can be executed. But, we are hopeful that the grants will be, or the pilots will begin in the middle of this year after the grants contracts are finalized and signed.
So probably sometimes during the summer, or certainly by the end of summer.
Summer to September-ish, yeah.
So that gives us a few months to, we have some citizens here who are obviously very much in favor of it, and they're young people, which is a good thing. We still have to educate a lot of other people. So what do you have to help us do that?
So as part of the process, as part of the grant application, we do have funds in for education and outreach. Very many different techniques. DEP does have an ad agency, an overarching ad agency that will be focused on the waste crisis for all of the states. So you'll be getting some feedback there. It'll be probably the larger newspapers will have articles. I'm not sure, Chris might go into more detail there too, but certainly some probably local TV spots. I think they're going to do some advertising on like a Pandora when you're going running, that kind of thing. So there'll be some overarching messaging. I sort of look at this as a three-tiered approach. The second tier will be both the SCROG, also applied for a grant to help educate with the education and outreach to all the communities that have applied in their region. So SCROG will be helping with that. Certainly we'll provide information for the town Facebook, for any kind of town social media posts. Certainly the town website will have a link to information about it. And then the third tier will hopefully work with the great people at the Sustainable CT committee to both their group, as well as if you have a wetlands commission, and any other groups in town that you might have that would like to help us do posts on their own social media pages, their personal social media pages, just sort of to get information out about the program. And again, the initial mailer will have a download to a mobile app, and the mobile app is actually an interactive app that will transmit messages to residents about the program. It will remind them to recycle their food. It will remind them what night to put their trash out. And it also allows you to ask the app questions. So it's an interactive system that also will help sort of with ongoing education and also with tracking of data.
And would this include all residents in the town, just single-family homes? How does that work?
It would be all residents that are currently participating or currently have collection service from your current hauler. Yeah, it's easier to do everyone together, and you're really a good-sized town for that. Torrington is another town that is looking at a town-wide pilot. West Haven as well. They're bigger, so it's more challenging. You guys are actually a perfect size for a town-wide pilot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor O'Sullivan?
Yes, thank you. So could you tell us a little bit more about what is the nature of the startup costs that the grants would cover. You talked about advertising, so is that part of it, paying for media buys and that sort of thing? But what else?
So the advertising is part of it. The outreach, just generally having people on the ground to help with outreach, is also part of it. All of the bags are covered and paid for free. That is part of it. All the additional transportation logistics are also covered during the pilot, and then the sortation, the hand sorting of the bags are covered. So
So when you say the additional transportation logistics, does that contemplate, I guess, amending our existing contracts with our hauler, because we're kind of changing, the mechanics of what they do now? We're adding some more tasks. We're changing, where they're delivering and the like. So, and I don't know when our contract expires, if they're multi-year. Maybe the town manager can shed some light on that. Do we have any issues with with getting the hauler to buy into all this, because they have to do different things and they may want more money for it?
I can't speak for the hauler about buying into this, but we do have a contract coming up based on past services that they provided to us as well, taking it to our new location at Murphy Road and so on, and the fees are sort of similar to the way they were doing it in the past. Now you hear this, and you got a lot of moving parts here that you have to look at. We're picking up the garbage, combined garbage, and bringing it somewhere and separating it. And then we're separating it, and then some of the garbage is going to go somewhere else. The food's going to go somewhere else, and then I would assume whatever's left over will go to our new place in Murphy Road. So I'm sure there's going to be different contracts. I don't know who's going to be doing all of this separating. And I'm curious, you quoted Brattleboro saving 68%, but how large of a staff is associated with that? Because we're basically subbing out our collection based off of 2 garbage barrels that have solid waste and recycling, and being taken to a location, currently future will be Murphy Road. Then you're talking about a lot of other different things. Some of this garbage is going to get a lot of frequent flyer miles and so on. So as you're just saying, you're talking a nice game, but then how many players do we need in order to play this game and so on? So Brattleboro saving 68%. I'm sure they must have quite a large sanitation department to do this.
Yeah, so really shouldn't be any change in your trash haulers' activity, other than they will, instead of bringing it to Mira or to your current hauler, their option is to either provide a quote to bring it to...
You say they're going to provide what?
They could provide a quote to tell us how much they would charge extra to bring it to Wallingford, or they could simply leave it at just drop it right at your transfer station in a container provided by Country Disposal in Wallingford, and they'll pick up their container. So I've done it both ways with other towns. It's kind of up to the hauler. If they want to provide a quote and it meets the budget that I already have in, then we can they can bring it to Wallingford, and the grant would cover the difference.
And the town would be paying countrywide to take the garbage away, the food waste away.
And
so we'd have a third vendor associated with this.
So you're going to, yeah. So
Plus we're having to have somebody that separates the garbage.
Yeah, so Country will separate, Country will separate the food from the trash, and then they will bring the food to Quantum for the time being. Again, this is a pilot year, so we're going to learn from that. You may decide, you know what, we don't want to go to Quantum, we want to start our own aerated static pile, and we want to open the bags, and we want the food waste to come back to our own location. There's all different things that you could do with this food waste, but for now, to keep it simple, your co-collected material would go to Country. It can either get to Country in Wallingford, either by way of Trash Master or Trash Away is your Trash Away.
Yes.
Either they can bring it, or Country can pick it up. I have pricing from Country to pick it up in Rocky Hill and bring it to their facility. So as long as your hauler will do it in that same range, and if they want to drive to Wallingford and bring it, then that's great. Or again, it can be picked up. After Country, there's now going to be 2 fractions. So one fraction will go to Quantum for the time, for the year. And then the other fraction will go wherever you want it to. It will go, it's priced right now to go to Hartford, so to Murphy Road or to Mira or whatever location that you want to bring the remaining garbage, it will be delivered there. So the
But you
total
said
cost
in your
of,
statement that, the Wallingford place would do the separating. So our hauler would go around their usual routes, pick up the garbage in the two-tone bags. Then they drive up to our transfer station, and then what do they do, just,
they can either leave it all in one big container there at the transfer station, or they could, if they want to, bring it to Wallingford. It's up to them.
but the one container, they're gonna put in the food scraps?
They're going to put both the orange and the green bags into the
So we're
container. They
gonna
don't
be
have to separate it.
dumping the garbage trucks
Into a larger container to
okay.
ship at the, every couple
And that
days,
container now has the multicolored
the
bags.
2-color bags.
And then Countrywide's gonna come in and take the food scrap bags and bring it back to
They're
Wallingford.
they're going to take
And now we
both.
got a dumpster or a container full with solid waste
So they're
that
actually going
somehow
to,
has to get to the solid waste disposal spot.
right, so they're
So
actually
we
going
have
to
a
take
second,
they're
so
going to take
another
the,
truck's gonna come in and
no,
pick
no, no,
up.
they're going to take the whole container with them. And then they're going to put it on their semi-automated line. They're going to pull the green bags from the orange bags. The green bags are going to go to Quantum, and the orange bags are going to come back to, not to your transfer station, but to whatever destination you want. If it's Mira or if it's Murphy Road, wherever you need it to go.
So the process is, our hauler picks it up at the curbside, brings it to the transfer station, puts it into a container, which the Wallingford group will pick up, drive to Wallingford, throw it on their conveyor belt that separates the garbage. So the food will go to the left and the other stuff will go to the right. So the food will go to Southington, and then Country will bring the rest of our solid waste from Wallingford back down to the Murphy Road location, which could be in Hartford or Berlin,
Right. Right.
all in one day.
I don't know if it's in one day, but yeah. And I can't guarantee you get your own trash back, but I can guarantee you get the weight of what goes in because we're monitoring all of that there. So that's what everybody's doing. That's the only way to do it and pilot it in a logical, manner.
When you say everybody, that's Brattleboro,
No, that's
Southern
that's
Maine,
the other towns
Swedish
in the
people.
pilot. The other
That's how
towns
they
in the
go.
pilot. So there are other towns in the pilot.
Other towns are signing up with this
Yeah. Yes.
multi-transportation of garbage system.
Yeah, because in the end, instead of shipping 5,000 tons to Pennsylvania, you're only going to ship 1,700 tons. So it's a significant change.
And 3,300 tons are going to go to Quantum?
Well, because of unit-based pricing, you will recycle better. More people will move materials into the recycling stream. More people will move materials into the reuse stream, and then you will get all of the food waste out to go to Quantum. So yeah, so the volume that leaves the state will be significantly lower. So even though you got a little bit of back and forth logistics, you don't have to ship that larger amount, such a long distance. I think what's great about the pilot opportunity, and that's really kind of the mission here tonight, is you can try all this. If for some reason it doesn't work and you're an anomaly and it doesn't work, then you don't have to keep it. And when I say anomaly, I mean that because I've personally implemented probably close to somewhere between probably 60 and 80 programs in my lifetime, and every single time you get this significant waste reduction and you get a behavior change that is sustainable. So I know that the mayor has seen some of our presentations, but this is something that has happened in all of the other surrounding communities when they have unit-based pricing. So I'm certain that you will get the results that we expect. Then it will be up to you if that works for you, and if the mechanics and the costs, you'll be able to see it all. The pilot gives you an opportunity to try it without having to spend any money or take any real risk. You're just, you're trying it. In fact, at the end of the pilot, you actually have about $180,000 savings net benefit to you, so you're almost being paid to try the pilot.
So getting back to the hauler standpoint, which trash away, so from their point of view, the way you're describing it, it sounds like this doesn't change their tasks. The only thing that it may change is their destination, where they ultimately dump what they've collected. Is that correct?
Right.
So in terms of trying to negotiate or what our arrangement is with them, it sounds like the only thing that may change is you're not taking it here, you're taking it there.
Right.
That accurately? Okay.
But we have to have room to take it there. I'm not sure whether our transfer station can handle, they do solid waste runs 4 or 5 days a week, and so on. So there's a volume of trash that has to be dumped somewhere in town.
So you described having all that dumped into a large container, one that can be put on a flatbed or whatever, and then taken away to Wallingford. So those containers, so what type of infrastructure changes would need to be made at our transfer station to accommodate all of that?
So you shouldn't have any infrastructure change. You should be able to accommodate it based on the tour of the transfer station that I did there. It would just be a container there. And then as soon as full, it would be picked up. We would just figure out the tonnage each day and what time it needs to be picked up each day. It shouldn't be, it's just going to be one additional container located there. So as far as after the tour that I took, you certainly have room for that.
So it's like the size of the containers we have, one for metal, for example, it's one of those roughly?
Yeah.
So we need a new bay for a new container, or is there room, was your perception that we have space there already for it?
Yeah, you when I took the tour, you definitely looked like you had space for it. So I think we can we might have to move one thing to a different spot or something, but.
We're talking about basically one of those containers would be allocated for this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So just another, picky logistical item. So as far as getting the bags from the supermarkets is concerned, who produces these bags? Is this, this Hefty or something like that, make them and just put a different label on them, or where are they coming from?
Yeah, so you have different bag suppliers that are used throughout New England, and there's a Massachusetts state bid, so you'll choose a bag supplier, and the bag supplier, along with your program manager, will organize which supermarkets are going to carry the bags for the pilots, and so it's just the supermarkets order as needed, and they pay as, in 30 days like anyone else. So they'll put them on the shelf, residents will buy them, they'll learn, okay, I only need X number of cases a week. It's just like ordering any other product for the supermarket. Because there are so many of these programs throughout the U.S., the supermarkets are all, any major supermarket, CVS, Home Depot, these are all used to participating in these programs. So it's just a matter of figuring out, because I've done 26 of these, I'm not sure who's in your town and where they're located, but we'll work with the logical vendors to make it easy for residents to get the bags. Again, you will have a savings in this of about $186,000, so it's pretty significant. So there could be that, in some cases you give some additional bags away if people will stop in and pick them up at Town Hall. But we definitely want to make it simple for people, and we don't want it to be cost prohibitive for people. That's why we're getting them 2 free bags and a free food bag.
So you have to convince at least one supermarket in town to surrender some shelf space, so to speak, for these special bags.
Right. It's actually really easy.
Okay, that has not been an issue.
No, never.
Okay. So I just want to circle back to to the grant money, what it covers. So we have an existing contract, which I guess is up for renewal with Trash Away, and under the program you're talking about, there's a lot of moving parts as far as expenses are concerned. There's other steps in the process. There's potentially a separate contract to haul away the the food waste, et cetera, et cetera. And so my question goes to what potentially does the grant cover? So does it potentially cover the delta between the existing arrangement we have right now with Trash Away and that multiple tiers of expenses you're talking about under the social plan? Because it sounds like the gross of the expense, at least to start out, is potentially higher because you have more haulers and more handling and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I don't have the budget on this slide, but in the grant, you have the cost of the bags, the cost of the sortation, which is a separate cost that's separating the bags at the country disposal location, and the cost of that extra logistics. The extra logistics cost, I believe, is somewhere around $58,000 a year. So it definitely covers the extra logistics. It covers the sortation, covers bag expense. It also covers a lot of extra sort of part-time help. We do extra enforcement, meaning we follow behind the trucks and we monitor who's doing a good job, who isn't. You know, there's a lot of other logistics that are going on that I haven't really gone into the detail of, but the grant covers all of that as well.
I take it then you would provide assistance to the town staff in estimating all that, so I know how much to apply for?
Yeah, we already have the budget all ready.
Okay. So I have one more question, and that is with respect to the projected, savings in volume, because you gave us one set of projected savings when all you have is food waste diversion, and then a much greater reduction if you also put in unit-based pricing, which is, I guess, kind of the stick as opposed to the carrot. So my question is, where does all that other stuff go? It has to go somewhere. I understand the food waste is going to go for anaerobic process, digestion or something like that. But then we have this other category that represents savings that people are, we are used to using the blue containers right now for recyclable, so I get that. But apparently there's another whole category of items that when you have unit-based pricing, people are figuring out something else to do with it. So can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, it's the question, the question that I get in every council meeting that is very difficult to define because every community is a little bit different. But you see generally a source reduction of somewhere around 35%, meaning it just goes away. It doesn't go to your neighbor because we've tracked town next to town, thinking, does it go over there? It doesn't really go to illegal dumping because, again, we track that. This is something else we'll track during this program because you don't see any additional dumping. Other people say, well, people bag up their garbage and they bring it to work. We don't really see a shift in the garbage going from residential to commercial, areas. So you get more goodwill donations. I can tell you that other programs that had the pink bag program, if you're in a unit-based pricing community, they get about 6 times the volume that a normal pink bag program gets. So people use the pink bags because they don't want to pay to throw away their other trash.
So that becomes part of this then, the pink bag is?
Not necessarily. I don't know if that program is still continuing, but if it isn't, you can add another program like that. Yeah,
Okay.
There's a lot of free programs, out there for textiles. You're going to see any of the other programs that you put on in town. If you have household hazardous waste day, if you have a shredding day, all of that, you're going to get much more participation because everyone's aware of what's happening,
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Duff?
Yeah, I have a few questions, and I kind of want to work back a little bit. So from just the user experience, because we're really in the weeds on some of these items. I'm a resident of Rocky Hill. Once I take my cart out to the curb, same as normal. If someone picks it up, my day does not change.
Right.
Okay. From the perspective of the town, we have a contract with a vendor to haul away our garbage. They're going to do it for a certain amount, or they're not.
Right.
And it's kind of up to the individual taxpayers and then the folks that have approved those contracts. The vendors are going to do it or not, or they have to figure out a way to come up with the logistics, or they're not interested.
Right.
It's kind of just we just need to have them figure it out in a way that's appropriate for how we need to responsibly handle the garbage.
Right, and I think to that point, it's a really good point, because I think what happens if you pilot this program is as you go out to bid for your next trash away type contract, they're going to realize, oh, I'm going to have to bring this to Wallingford. Is there anything I can do to make that more cost effective for myself? Because that's what I'm going to do. You're also, I think, going to find other transfer stations that are going to be interested in doing the sortation. So, for instance, if you're going to be working with USA Hauling at Murphy Road, perhaps by the end of this pilot, instead of continuing to go to country, hopefully they have figured out a way to also do the sortation. I do know for a fact that some of the sortation companies are certainly talking to some of the transfer stations here in Connecticut, and also as well as additional anaerobic digesters. So quantum might not be your only option. And then something else that I mentioned is the idea that you might want to use your own food waste in your own aerated static pile, in which case then you have no tipping fee. At a quantum, you're going to have a little bit more operation and management fee, but it's the true circular economy. You're now putting your food waste back into your own compost and into your own ball fields, et cetera. So there's so many ways that you can you can modify and change this and make this better than what the pilot is, but the pilot is the best that we can do right now to demonstrate that this is a great, pathway forward.
And there's basically a range of options open to us that at the least complex is basically doing things the same way we're doing it now, that just goes to a different place, up to these other options that could potentially be phased in over time.
Right.
Okay, now that was the garbage when it's at the curb. Once I go inside my house, so now I've got 3 bags, right, or I've got 3 containers that I need to manage. I got my recycling, I've got my orange bag, and my green food waste bag. That's each person has to figure out that kind of on their own, right?
Right, so that is a new change, and that is that's one of the things we're going to measure is comments back from residents. The mobile app is really a great tool because we feel like we're going to get a lot of back and forth from residents, and that's what we want to get so that we can learn and know that what we need to do to make it easier for them. And
then Councilor O'Sullivan had mentioned one of the slides that popped out to me as well. It said that the most impactful thing you can do is go to unit-based pricing, which of course gives everybody incentive to save money. And it's a substantial drop. It looked like, at least with benchmark numbers, was almost 50% or 35. It's pretty close, from 740 to 386.
Mm-hmm.
And you also gave some examples of some local towns or Connecticut towns, Stonington and Mansfield, that are doing that now, and they're having their own pilots. So the concern that I have is that we're looking at, by introducing potentially UBP and the co-collection, those are 2 kind of big behavioral changes. One of them is a behavioral change, and one of them is other structural change. We have to now, you're getting charged for your bags and garbage. Is there a way to start out with less complexity, just going to UBP, and then getting people used to that? You see that it's a success. You bank a win. It's still, it's not the whole thing that we want. And then looking at another pilot down the road. It's kind of what Stonington did. Is that something that is within the scope of the grant, or is it kind of all or nothing with this round?
So absolutely in the scope of the grant. It's I think one of the things that I've learned as I've gone through the unit-based pricing process and moved so many communities into unit-based pricing, one of the big pushbacks is, well, is there something I can do with my food waste? So the only thing that's a little bit nice about this, that's a little different, is the fact that it is a way of saying, okay, you definitely can get down to that 1 or 2 bags a week of trash, because guess what? There's another place you can put your food, and it's always going to be a lesser expensive option. That's why a lot of the communities, I think, have coupled both of them together. And Chris, I might be wrong. Was there anybody that just applied for UBP? But don't get me wrong, just UBP is totally fine if that's what you feel like you want to do.
No, so far we have not received any grant requests from folks wanting to do UBP only. I think most towns are looking to bundle it with the food diversion, because that's really the thing that a lot of their residents are asking for, realizing that their food waste shouldn't be going for disposal in a landfill or waste energy facility, but rather, being made into compost or being used to create energy at an AD facility.
Yeah, understood there, and particularly the folks who choose to come out to a hearing on a rainy night to help support this. I'm sure they're probably composting already, to be honest. So I guess that was just my question, because for the people who aren't already bought in, it's a big educational change that has multiple layers. Mm-hmm. It might be easier, or not, it might be less complex to say, well, we'll try a pilot with UBP, get people used to that, and then as a follow-up, once some of that pilot money goes away, well, now here's another way we could build on it. So I'm just going to, that's not an official recommendation. I just think that's something perhaps to take into consideration, because this is a large change that hopefully once we make it, it'll stick. And then we can keep adding on these other really cool projects, but we want to do that from something that's not going to be, it's already, there's so many moving parts, it's kind of hard to grasp the whole picture. So one thing to consider.
Thank you. Councillor Prakash?
Thank you. So, no, thank you. This was a wonderful presentation. I hope you will send that to us as well. I'd like to take a look at it more closely. But thank you for that. And I just want to go back to that slide, the diversion slide. What is the time period you're looking at for that 68% reduction?
So if you, during the pilot year, because you're getting 2 free bags of food, bags of trash and one for food, you're not going to get as great a reduction in year one during the pilot. During year two, if you do create a unit-based price of around 80 cents per bag, you should see an immediate drop down close to that 68-70%. Again, I think you're better than the average town, so you might see better than a 68. I think in my calculations I have you at about 70, so I think you'll do even better. But some towns are looking at it this way, so sort of the opposite of what the first counselor was saying there is instead of going to just UBP, they're sort of looking at it as more of a co-collection and adding UBP in slowly. So in year two, you might do this and your bags might be 45 cents. In a couple of communities are looking at this. The year three, the bags are 55 cents, or you might give away some more free bags, but not all free bags in year two. And you know what I mean? So you can play around with all different versions of that. So the waste reduction, the max waste reduction you're going to get, you got to get up to that 80 cent range or higher for your trash bag to create that, I don't think I want to open up another bag scenario, so people are really thinking about
So you're saying like by year two? End of year two?
Well, in my model there, I have year two, but I'm saying you can model it out any way you want to, and I have several communities that have said, let's just go from 35 cents a bag to 40 cents a bag or 45 cents a bag and slowly scale it up over 5 years. And so sort of slowly get to
I see what you're
ways
saying.
you throw. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a good segue because my next question was about unit-based pricing, kind of how it ties in here. How does it play out? Like, how do you actually, how is it operationalized actually, like in towns? Like, not to get into too many weeds in here, but like, kind of, what is the immediate impact for like a resident, and how does it play out?
So again, in year two, you could use some of that savings, that $189,000, to give away some additional free bags. So say people get 25 free bags in year two or 50 free bags, and then they start paying after that. The bag cost after that could be 35 cents. It could be a dollar. You could kind of decide and play with the numbers. Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah, it's kind of up to you to decide how many free. What prices do I want to charge for those unit pricing bags in order to decrease?
Yeah, so this was actually, thank you, Bill. This is where I was going actually. How do you track individuals' amount of waste, I guess, and how do you actually, from a data perspective, how do you track it?
So you don't necessarily track individual amounts of waste. You just track, in the end, we'll be tracking weekly tonnages and then overall tonnage compared to year to date, week to date, year before, is the primary way we're going to do it. In the smaller pilots, we have the ability to actually uniquely code the bags and scan the bags so that we can understand behavior at each household, just to provide not a, hey, we know what you threw away, but more to help us understand, how many people are throwing away this amount, this much weight per week. For instance, in Meriden, we know the average bag is weighing, for a food bag is weighing about 8 pounds. Interestingly, about 8 pounds a week is the diversion from Brattleboro, because we know that. So, it's more, we're learning some about individual homes, but you're not going to know your individual weight. We're not going to necessarily know your individual.
So you're not billing the individual here?
No, you're paying as you go for your trash bag. So your trash bag cost to the actual cost of the bag.
So it's
above the cost. So you're just and
sorry,
it's a unit. Oh, it's okay. We call it unit-based pricing because it's a unit of measure. So some towns that have unit-based pricing actually have an 8-gallon trash bag, a 13-gallon trash bag, and a 30-gallon trash bag at different price points. So you buy the bag based on how much you think you're going to generate.
I hear you. Okay, one last thing. I wanted to. We talked about a lot of advantages, and I really like the program. You have implemented lots of programs. I'm sure you have seen some negative feedback. Can you talk about that?
So most of the negative feedback that we get is before the program is implemented. Once the program is implemented, it's amazing the positive feedback that we always get, even if it's just unit-based pricing and you're not.
To be clear, I'm talking about more from a learning perspective rather than, because human behavior is generally same. Like, you would like to believe we are different from people in Meriden. We are not. So you are going to act the same way. And so I just want to know, like, I know, like, this is a really nice pitch, but just to get into a little bit of, like, you know, the negative side of it.
So yeah, no. And the other good thing about the pilot is you get to hear all the negatives because you go through the pilot, right? And there's little risk to any risk for you guys because you really have no cost and you get a savings. However, the biggest objection we usually get is my neighbors aren't going to do it and I don't want to do it. Well, it's amazing because when I follow trucks the first week of any new program, everybody's neighbor does it, and they all do it too. I'm not sure why. Are they afraid someone's going to look and see and say that you didn't do it? I don't know the reason, but most people just do it. You do get an occasional person who refuses to do it, but you know, every program kind of plays out the same exact way. The fear is my neighbor won't do it. The fear is, you know, people are going to illegally dump, and there's going to be trash on my lawn. We never see it. You know, I'd say those are the two largest objections. The other one really is that the way that this program works is you've shifted a little cost to the user. So again, depending on what you charge for your bags, that's what you're shifting. You're going to get the big bang for buck, the $300,000 savings, and beyond probably in future years. That's in your town budget, you know. And there are residents that say, I don't want to save the town money. I want to pay for the bags. So, you know, that's your other objection. Why should I pay for bags and save the town money? I'm not getting anything. You know, it's not like you're going to give it back to me. You know, that kind of objection. You know, those are kind of our majors. Chris has sat through many of these. What are our other objections, Chris, if you're still there?
Well, I think there's a common misunderstanding, and you know, I went through this years ago in my town in West Hartford. It was considering it, and there was a lot of uproar. People, you know, residents saying, well, this is a new tax. I'm paying twice for my trash. And what they don't realize is that you're shifting the cost. So, you know, right now as a West Hartford resident, I'm paying for my trash through my property tax. You know, if West Hartford shifts to pay-as-you-throw, that, you know, that cost will come out of the property tax as a line item, and I'd be paying for it, you know, per bag. And, you know, we have a household of 3 where I live. I rolled out my 96-gallon bin today with one 16-gallon kitchen bag in it. So I know, you know, as a taxpayer, I'll save money with pay-as-you-throw because I'm paying for kind of an average amount of trash, and I don't generate that much because we divert a lot. So I think that's just really important. That's part of the reason why education is needed up front, so people understand that it's not a double fee, it's not a new fee, it's just a change in how it's being paid for. One of the other things we've heard in the past is, well, will my overall tax bill from the town go down? Well, no. I mean, that line item will be eventually removed depending on the pricing of the bags, but there are obviously, as you all know, there are other upward stressors on, you know, causing the budget go up, whether it's salaries or other things like that. So there will be a cost savings, but that cost savings will probably be dwarfed by other increases in the town budget. So I think it's just important for residents to understand that as that program eventually shifts the price or the cost of how the trash is paid for.
No, thank you. That was a very very insightful answer, I think. And I think some of this is probably baked into your communications already, hopefully, because this is exactly where people will go, probably, like, I'm paying twice, and that's what I'm most concerned about, actually. And I think we should have a clear strategy, if you already don't have one, I'm sure you do, to actually address that. I think those are like an FAQ or something, right, if we go with this. So thank you. That was very helpful.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Sharma.
Sure. Yeah, I'll say right at the beginning that, you know, I think this is a noble cause for us and a good program and all that. But when I want to think about maybe the reality of it too, I would say that one is, definitely. So we talk about some savings in your numbers, but this is not going to save any of our individual taxpayers. So let's just be honest about that up front. You're not getting a savings because we're going to, the town will appreciate some amount of savings, but the figure that was thrown out won't equate to even at probably a half a mill rate. So we have to understand that, right? There's a cost to doing good here and to doing this program. The other thing is I don't understand how. So we've heard two different concepts. Last council meeting we heard about reducing the receptacle boxes that will be delivered to the houses, to the addresses, right? Capping, sort of say capping, taking what the barrels we have now and maybe cutting them in half, and that's going to reduce. But then also unit-based pricing, I think, is the same way of trying to tell people, hey, we're trying to throttle you back a little bit here, be more mindful of your garbage, because it's going to cost you, and if it costs you, you're going to be more mindful and you're going to reduce your tax, your output, your garbage. But I think I might have asked you this question in the initial presentation. I just don't understand where does it go? I mean, I just don't wake up one day and eat half as much food or need half as much wrappers for the food that I buy. And I wonder if you have a statistic about how many garbage disposals people have in their sinks, right? So a lot of my food scraps, banana peels, and egg shells, all that goes down my trash thing and it already goes out. So my big garbage take up is hard goods and recyclables, which I now understand don't bring any money back to town like it used to. Recyclables go through cycles of being marketable and not marketable. Are we in a cycle where they're marketable or not? And those are some of my questions, just understanding that those are things in this program.
So I guess I'd go back to, again, since it is a pilot, again, you're trying it to see what does happen to the trash stream. So you may not be able to identify that your trash went down by XYZ and this much went to Goodwill and this much went over there. You'll just know that your trash went down. You'll know how much your recyclables went up, and you'll know how much food you captured. But some of that other source reduction, again, you won't necessarily know where it went, but you'll see in your volumes that it's gone. That's one really good reason to try it for the year. Again, after the year, if you don't like it, you don't have to keep doing it.
So we don't know where it goes, other than possibly some of it goes to Goodwill or clothing, fabrics. People might pull those out more and give them to other programs and reduce it that way.
Or even their neighbor. You're cleaning out your basement, you've got a toaster, you've got whatever. You might give it to your neighbor. You might give it to a kid who's going to college. I mean, I think people just start to completely think differently.
Yeah, I mean, mine's reducing because I'm now an empty nester.
Right.
But it didn't, it's not because my personal activities changed any.
Right, and a lot of times when people are asking me that question, what happens to it or how do we reduce more, they're thinking about themselves and they don't realize, and Chris Nelson might be able to also talk to this, when Chris Nelson goes out for his nightly walk or his early morning walk, he knows what he put out, but he also knows what his neighbors put out. And it's amazing how much is out there that should have been recycled. So it may not be your trash that's really going to change. It might be some other people's trash that say, you know what, I don't want to, they gave me this recycle bin, I hardly ever use it, we better start using that, kids. And they changed their behavior at home, and their behavior might be significantly changed, whereas your
that's a good point. It's not everybody's behavior that will necessarily have to change. Some people will be static, other people will have a big change.
This group over here won't change much, but there will be other people that do change, a lot. Yeah, right, yeah.
And one other final question is, if we're going to be encouraging composting probably with this. Mm-hmm. So some people will say, well, I'll just compost everything. I won't have a dirty bag. I'll just have my hard goods go out. Mm-hmm. I'll come off the grid.
Which is the best thing for you, because then you don't pay for that at all.
So there must be some negative. That's a dirty chore, okay? And so composting for yourself, maybe, I would think we would need some educational material so people know how to compost and not have their neighbors calling up the town about having seagulls flying over their home or something, Because, you want to make sure that it's covered and protected and you're not attracting wildlife.
Right, and the good news on that is you've probably got a good team that's ready to put out some education on how to do that. I use the green cone. I don't represent them in any way, but I love the thing. It's great. So yeah, it's pretty easy to do. Yeah, I can put meat and I can put bones in it. I can put my cat litter in it. It's the greatest thing on earth. Anyway, I need to start working for them, but no.
Yep. And then the only last one thing I had was I was, most of us probably, our compost is going to be really very clean. But, like what happens if somebody throws some fentanyl in there or disposes of other drugs or dumps some gasoline in there or something like that? Now that compost is, so for the most part, a lot of composting is just going to be composting down into the ground, and it's not meant to be reused to grow things with.
So you mean putting anything like that in the green bag to go to anaerobic digestion, or you mean what someone does at home?
Well, probably both. I mean, some people are just going to hand it away, and some are going to try to do it at home. But I worry about how that can get contaminated, and does that somehow come back to hurt us?
So I'm going to let Chris go on that one, because you stumped me there. I've not
Well,
heard of
I mean, just in general, yeah. I mean, you want to keep your compost clean. And again, if you're going to compost at home, you typically don't want to put in kind of meats or greases, things like that. You want to kind of keep it to the more organic stuff that you're doing in your home composting bin. If you try to throw meat and bones out there, that's the kind of stuff that can attract critters. So I think, if there's composting education, that's what they usually advise for home composting. But yeah, I mean, I think even going to the commercial facilities like Quantum, some of you may have heard of PFAS as a contaminant that shows up in the waste stream. And there's concern about composting. Some of the places can take in compostable containers, things like that. There's concern about introducing items like that might contain PFAS, which could contaminate the end product of what comes out. If you send this stuff to a traditional composting facility, the finished product is compost. If you send it to an anaerobic digester, they use it, they run it through the system, they create electricity, and you get a digestate that comes out, which is a solid, and that gets usually mixed with some other compost to make a finished product. But yes, you want to try to keep that as free as from contaminants as you can. So you can land apply it, use it in your yard, use it in your garden. That's the ultimate objective, is to have clean, good stuff, organic material that you can use in a way that benefits your yard, or people put out.
Are there test kits to test your own compost pile to make sure that it stays healthy for you?
I'm not aware of any home test kits, but people who are more active as composters might know of things. I have 2 compost bins going in my backyard, and I kind of just throw it out there and let the worms do the job in the summertime, and they do a really good job. So, but I'm sure there's something out there where you could test it for various things. I just don't know how complete of a self-test kit options might be out there.
So I think the good thing about the grant is it gives you a chance to try it. It gives you a year to try it. You get to look at every comment that comes back on that mobile app. There'll probably be another way to communicate with people as well. Look at the types of questions that they have. I think, I can't remember which one said, you can't let perfect be the enemy of good. I mean, this is a way to save money in the general fund budget. It is a way to reduce your risk going forward as prices continue to go up, because landfill capacity continues to shrink, so you're going to continue to have to ship it. So the more you can reduce it now, the better off you are. So I think it's a way to try these things, to get the feedback from your residents and let the residents tell you what they want to do. The feedback, from me that I've seen from Meriden has been incredibly positive. I think you'll be thrilled with the feedback. So I do think it's worth it, to at least try for the year.
Thanks.
My concern is if we don't pull the food out, that we're never going to get down to 2 bags. Because I took this challenge at home during the pandemic, and we're a family of 5 and 2 dogs and fish. And it was such a pain, right? Like literally, I had to monitor the garbage can, right? And I pulled so much out of there that I realized I could recycle that I had no clue. And a lot of it was just laziness, I think, right? Especially on behalf of, the younger people in my household. I'll blame them because they're not here.
Here to defend themselves.
And the amount of food that I put into and I have a garbage disposal, but I put into the garbage can was remarkable. So you can get down to one bag, but I don't know that I could do it in my house if I didn't remove the food. I don't know. So that's one thing. My concern is it really a cost savings in our general fund? Because I see that 186 or whatever that number was, right? Savings, and I understand it. But when this money is gone and the pilot program is over, that savings is now going to have to go for all of these costs that are the two different hauling locations and all of that. And I don't know if those two numbers are going to cancel each other out, or we may be paying more.
So it should be a net savings of about $300,000 in year 2 of the program, provided you're at about an 80-cent bag cost. If you go down and you want to try a 45-cent bag cost, you know, we can model what that looks like too, but there still will be a little bit of savings there. So I think, again, that's a good reason, again, to try the pilot, because you'll be able to see initially how much waste have we reduced, and if we continued as is, what does this look like? If we do this with the bag cost, what does this look like? I think even by month 3 and 4, you can start modeling for the next budget year. Do we want to keep this? Do we not? What does it look like? How is it played out? And I think then you have resident feedback as well as actual hard data about your town. And not only that, by route. You know what I mean? We'll understand it by day. Yeah, again, and good point, Pam. So the other thing that as we develop infrastructure and as you look at alternatives to, you know, again, the logistics of backwards, forwards, you know, to country, you can look at perhaps USA Hauling coming up with their own way to sort, so you don't have to go down to country. You're now going there. Again, you might want to take that food waste yourself, so therefore your tipping fees at Quantum become lower. So there's a lot of other ways, I think, to even save on top of what I think is a $300,000 or so a year savings, over and above that. But again, in order to get there, you sort of need to start to gain that data, and this gives, you know, USA and other transfer stations the time to look at, okay, if we're going to do this, how can we set this up? Where can we set this up? How can we best work with our current customers? So I think this is again, it's a pilot. That's why we still call it a pilot. Because it's not necessarily permanent. We want it to be permanent, obviously, but you know, it's not necessarily permanent.
Okay, and then I have 2 more questions. Do we need a permit at our transfer station now to, Steve Sobolak is wheeling over. Do we need a permit at the transfer station to now have this?
So we're permitted as a transfer station?
Do you want to talk in the microphone? Okay, I'm sorry to bother you.
No, please do.
Okay.
I have many a comment. I think we'd be remiss if I didn't mention some of them as the Public Works Director. But for the permit, I've been trying to research that, and we are permitted as a transfer station. So that means we can have bins. I just don't know if we can have a garbage truck go and dump into another bin. And, you know, how big is that bin going to be? You know, and first of all, we're not really set up for this, the transfer station. If stuff spills, we have a grade of 6-7% down there. It's washing down in the catch basins. There's a lot of infrastructure stuff like that. Just, I'm as it is, we've been cited before. So, you know, I don't want to take that chance and have them come back at us. So I think everything has to be trucked off site. So I don't think we can do it down there. So when you guys are done with your questions with them,
Yep.
I'd love the opportunity to come back and just address
absolutely.
some points.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Sobolak. And then,
I was going to say, and I think we did speak to Frank, and Frank isn't on the call, and I don't know if you were on the call when we spoke to Frank. I think it is possible for you, I mean, you're already permitted to handle that material. It's just a matter of when we can go back and relook at the space to make sure that works for you.
What else? Is there still that CVS style incentive program where that we talked about where people could get coupons and
Yeah, so residents for the pilot year will either get some sort of a hard copy coupon or some sort of a mobile app coupon that will come through one of your partner stores. In future, there are other ways to also, roll out coupons. Again, instead of physically handing out free bags, you could do the same thing through some sort of a voucher program. As far as maybe rewards is sort of what maybe you were talking about, there are some, again, it's a pilot, so as much as it seems complicated, we tried to keep it as simple as we could, but there are other things you can add on to this. Moving into year 2, you might be able to partner, for instance, with a rewards platform that somehow provides rewards to you if you're registered online and you're participating in the program. Those rewards could equal out to be, I think the reward platform we looked at was around $400 a household a year if you claimed everything and you participated in that couponing kind of system. Not everyone likes to do the couponing, but it's something that you could perhaps add into this. So again, it's a pilot. We got to take it one at a time, but there are lots of things you can do to ease into it in year 2.
And then my last question is, when we first started these conversations, we had considered a much shorter duration and only a section of town. And is that still an option?
Yes, so you could do a shorter duration, definitely. I did it as a year in this particular budget because the other ones that we put into the DEP budget are a year, and DEP at their discretion could hit one button and make everybody 9 months, or so depending on how many people apply. So you could certainly go down to 6 months. It obviously saves money in the grant fund, so you don't have to keep the year. I think we have an alternative budget for half a year in there too for you if you'd prefer to do that. As far as going to one route, certainly you can also go to one route. I will say that we have probably 6 communities that have applied for full town. We're really looking for the full towns. I'll let Chris speak more to this. So there's a lot of towns that have applied for a route. So that might make it more difficult. You're kind of late to the game. Many people, 26 applications are in. So you might want to stick with the whole town, but I'll let Chris address that.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's a town decision on what they want to do. But I know our commissioner is looking for pilots that are, potentially will result in more significant reductions of waste generation. So certainly going townwide will have a bigger environmental impact and a bigger amount of waste reduced. And but again, at the end of the day, it's a town's decision on what they want to do.
And Chris, what do you think the future of this is? I mean, I received an email from, I want to say it was either CCM or Cost last week, or maybe it was today. We get so many now with the legislature being in session, but I understood that the commissioner put in a request that there be permanent funding for projects such as CCSMM, and it didn't even make it out of the environmental committee, which is really disappointing because you see all of these initiatives and you see where DEEP has these certain requirements. The governor himself wants to see certain things done by a certain year, and you have towns like us who have been weighing this and have been involved for at least a year and a half, and then you see that there really isn't even that support by lawmakers for the sort of this future.
I will say that some of the requests for additional funding for future years, some of that did get moved, I think, to the budget implementer.
The implementer
and
bill?
I don't track legislative stuff, but some of these things may still be alive, just in different legislative vehicles. So don't give up hope yet. I think we're still hopeful that there'll be some decent news on that front.
Okay, thank you. So I have nothing further.
And that's this week too, right? At the end of this week or Monday or something? The session ends, or the decisions will get
Friday,
made?
maybe? I don't know.
4th, yeah. So I was just thinking with the 1-year pilot that you might like that better because it gives you the 1 year free. Okay, the transportation costs and everything, you won't have to pay for that. It'll give you the 1 year to really educate the residents. You've got a team of people, through the grant being funded that will really get the residents on board, be able to talk to them throughout the whole year. And also, it'll give you that the rest of the state and the other, USA and country and everybody else a chance to get, automated sorting to sort, and they're not now. To they maybe anaerobic digestion, more to come to the state. Like there's maybe things that are going to happen within that year, and you'll know more by the end of the year that way. I think you'll just be in a better place, if you go for that year, and the money's there, it's free. Yeah.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Sorry.
Councilor Greenspan?
Yeah, I'll try to be quick on these. I mean, I think the positive is that this is a pilot, and the pilot goes two ways, right? Either we're successful on it from the town, but you may turn to us and say, hey, no one's using the program, and we could pull the program after the year, we don't go forward. So that's a nice opportunity for us to kind of look at it. The mayor asked the question about the permitting, and that's definitely a concern because I've been through the deep permitting process, and there's so many different types of permits, and the paperwork is mountainous, and it's not easy to get a little change going from brush to wood chips to something else is all different permits. So I'm glad you asked that question because that's one that's relative for our transfer station. I guess the biggest question I have, it seems like with a pilot program, the learning curve is going to be the biggest challenge, right? We need to learn to do things differently. Some of us are probably set in our ways and not going to make a lot of changes, and others that are behind the curtain over here are already doing this and, could maybe lead us through the process. So we've talked a lot about the hauling costs and other things, but we really need to focus on the educational component, whether it be from our students at the high school who spoke tonight, people in town, or a program that you're going to do, because otherwise the fear is we'll fail because we don't change our habits.
Yeah, so great comment, and that's why we kind of, again, have a three-tiered approach. The overall arching message coming out of DEP and the marketing firm that's going to be talking about the waste crisis ongoing. The Scrog region will have a couple of interns, full-time interns that will be working with the, oh, right, you're not Scrog. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you don't get that benefit, so sorry. But Pam is part of Scrog, so she'll have all those tools, which you should get the benefit of. So that's a plus. But part of that is things like talking to the high schools, talking to the middle schools, talking to the elementary schools so that they learn and understand what's happening. A little bit of curriculum, I think, that we've worked on with NVCOG to go into the schools to help them to learn again. So helping to create sort of a multi-tiered messaging system. And then the third tier is working with your different committees, different groups. I don't know if you have a bird watching club or a book club or all of this we've sort of identified as ways to talk to these groups via Zoom meetings, and if any of them have interest in helping to, push that message out through their Instagram and, take a picture. This is how much trash I made. I love this program. It's really cool. It's working for me, whatever that is. But, really try to motivate and activate those groups that you have in town. And I do believe, just from the limited 3 months, so far 3.5 months in Meriden, the response rate that we've had with a really limited grant. So your grant is significant. It's in the $700,000 plus that you'd be receiving. The Meriden grant was minuscule, and we've still had a really great response. So I think I'm really optimistic about it. And again, it's a pilot. Again, you can't let perfect be the enemy of good. If you try it and you don't like it, as you mentioned, as you started, you don't have to keep on doing it. If you get negative feedback from your residents, you certainly don't have to keep doing it. I just feel really, really certain, just based on the number of programs I've been a part of, that you're going to get a lot of positive feedback from residents, and you're going to want to keep going.
And just one other question, probably not 100% related. You're targeting residences for tonnage reduction, but just part of me is thinking, why are we not targeting businesses and restaurants that are the large volume producers, less touches, less people, less individuals to change, to see what the impact is, not necessarily on the town's tonnage, but the individual business's tonnage?
So great question, and I'll let Chris talk about this too. So I'm the residential person.
Okay.
There's actually a commercial person, just not here. I'll let him talk.
Thank you. To kind of complement the focus we have on the residential section through this grant program, DEEP did recently enter into a contract with the Center of Ecotechnology. It's a nonprofit out of Massachusetts They've done a lot of work for Mass DEP as well as some other states, but they have a lot of programs to help businesses reduce their waste. So they're just getting going in Connecticut. These are essentially free consultation services for Connecticut businesses if they're interested in reducing the amount of waste that they generate. The restaurant sector is one area in particular where we're going to have some focus, I believe. We met last year with the Connecticut Restaurant Association. They were interested in maybe doing some pilots from restaurants. Clearly they've been dealing with COVID-related challenges and keeping restaurants open, but that aside, they were also interested in trying to pursue this sustainability type program for the restaurant sector, and they had some specific areas in mind with high densities of restaurants that they thought might be good for pilots. So we're trying to circle back with them and see what we can get going on the restaurant side. And so I would say, if there are any particular businesses in Rocky Hill you would think might be interested in having these consultation services, you can reach out to me and I can put you in touch with the consultants. Thank you.
Also, the Center for Ecotechnology works with schools a lot. I've worked with them a lot on a number of schools and separating the food waste, because right now in the cafeterias, it all goes into the trash for the most part. So they come in and they develop a plan for the school, and we go in and separate the trash from the food, from the recycling, pour off the liquids, and donation as well. And then that way we combine that with this program, the kids go home and talk about it at the dinner table and say to the parents why we got to make sure we put our food in that green bag, things like that. So it works out, and that would complement it as well.
Thank you. Councillor Levine?
Thanks. Just a couple quick questions. And this is more just to kind of confirm a few things, just not for myself as much as for everybody, but the regular recycling program we have now, nothing changes from that. You still have your blue bins and everything's going in, so just make sure everyone's clear on that. The barcoded bags you mentioned in the smaller programs where they had like UPC, whatever codes on them to identify the actual homeowners. That's not something we would be doing in our program. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, it's not.
Okay.
It's too big to track it. It's only 1,000 homes there, so the smaller programs, it's trackable, and we don't actually track it to the specific address. We call it home 1, 2, 3, 4. We really don't know where home 1, 2, 3, 4 is. We just know that all the bags to home 1 belong to home 1, so we know home 1's behavior and we know home 2's behavior, and that just helps us to understand how to help, where there are trends and how to change what we're doing.
Yeah, I just want to make sure people understand that you're not tracking
Yeah.
everybody's.
Yeah, that's a little too complicated.
Because when you first said, I'm like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about overall trash level, trash, and I'm using big term trash, it encompasses everything. Aside from folks' occasional donation to Goodwill, and if let's say you're not going to compost, your overall trash level is not really going to change, but you're going to be doing better things with that. Is that a fair?
Yeah, so the technical term is materials management. You're going to manage your materials differently at your home. So instead of thinking as the trash can as the end destination, you've got recycling, you've got trash, you've got food, you've got donation, you've got, we could give that to X, making sure yard waste doesn't go in. That's another one that is a really good point. About 13% of the stream there, is still of that organic material. So about probably almost 20% of the organic material is probably yard debris, not supposed to go into the incinerator in Connecticut at all. But, when you've got your bin, you're rolling it out to the curb, you got some yard debris, you shove it in your bin, you shut the lid, and you forget about it. And so all of that behavior changes. So that now gets grass cycled back onto your own yard, or you bring it to, a site where you can deliver your.
Right, because I pick up what Deputy Mayor Sharmat said, people are going to freak out, I got to reduce well, you're not really necessarily reducing the amount of waste, you're just managing it better is what you're,
right, exactly.
Outside from the few examples you get. Okay.
Right.
Just want to talk a second about the data. If we go in this pilot program, how do we get data? How often do we get it? What's the time lag to get it? Because this kind of feeds in the question about whether you do a 6 or 12 month study or just the pilot, because let's say we get data at 6 months and 9 months, because it's going to take a while for people to start changing to really see meaningful data. If we're getting data after 9 months and it takes 2 or 3 weeks to get it, that's the end of the 10 month. You're really going to have to go a full year, because then you're going to, if you do want to change, you're going to need 4 to 8 weeks just to go back to something. So I think a 6 month program is going to be problematic just from a logistics standpoint. Either you're going to have to do it for a year or not do it, I would think. But maybe you could give us a little idea of how data management works, how we get it, how often we get it, lag and all that.
So good point on that, and that's also why I prefer a 9-month or a 12-month pilot, is just because there is a bit of a lag. So we will track week to date, prior to week to date. We'll be tracking hopefully by route week to date. We'll try to get as detailed as possible. But as far as reporting out, it's probably going to be a once a month thing, which will be a week after the close of the month. So you're five or 6 weeks out. Ideally, we'll want to have some kind of a report that goes to your council, so you can just somebody can read it out each time and say, this is where we were, this is where we are. Now we'll probably track it through some kind of a chart. So that you can watch the change, that kind of thing. But there will be a little bit of a lag just because it's too cumbersome to get it to you weekly.
Right. So just something to kind of keep in mind, the reality of the timing of those things. So that's all I had. Everything else was asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Malero?
Yeah, I do have a few questions, and thank you for your time. So it sounds like there's a pretty significant paradigm shift around smarter separation for better recycling, I guess, is the kind of common denominator from how I'm understanding this. And there's obviously some major behavior changes that we have to communicate and instill on how we do this in order to, again, better recycle. Kind of tying in, one of the questions was Councilor Levine was alluding to was the feedback based on, what are we seeing in the end? And I was thinking through this whole presentation as well is what's this proactive feedback, meaning that we discover this in the end, we're saying, well, they're still not really separating this correctly. How do we immediately go back to the, to whatever the communication path is to escalate back to the community to say, hey, this is what we're finding. Let's initiate that change, or let's communicate that change to say, we're still not doing this correctly, right? We're still not separating correctly. I know we do have a town app that we rolled out that a mechanism for communications, for example, to make it simpler. But that was one of the questions that was crossing my mind is how do we do reverse feedback more proactively, understanding that it does take time to collect that information, but at the same time is how do we make it a little bit more proactive or a little bit quicker as well too, so that we adjust as a town quicker to separate properly. That was one thought and one question, and then the other question is around. I know there's grants here to do this, but in the end, let's say we are saving, it is successful, we're seeing good feedback, we're separating properly. But let's say there's no more grants and there's now a cost for us to pay quantum. Is that something that's been forecasted in the future?
Yes.
If we continue the same process?
Right. So based on all of the costs going forward, I am estimating about a $300,000 a year savings to the general fund. So that includes some of the revenue from the bags. It includes reduced tip fees from not having to ship out of state the majority of the material. There is a tip fee for quantum. There's obviously a transport fee to quantum, but that's still significantly lower than shipping out of state. So even with all, when you look at all costs, yeah, that's at 80 cents a bag. So when you look at all costs, you should have a significant still a significant savings annually. Again, your costs are going to constantly be going up, so that savings gets larger and larger every year. If you play with that bag fee in the beginning, you're going to have a slightly lower savings in the beginning. Once we get better infrastructure and better logistical, solutions, you'll have even more savings. You'll save on some of the logistics if you don't have to go back and forth. You'll save on the hand sorting, goes down probably, I think it's at least 50%, probably closer to 65% once you can get to fully automated sorting. And I do know that we've had 2 specific companies that come from Europe that are looking at Connecticut for locations to do the automated sortation. So I do feel like your infrastructure is going to improve, over the next couple of years. But again, as Pam mentioned, during this year, you'll be able to evaluate some of that. And maybe there's some stepping stones in between where, you may not, the perfect solution may not be ready and built, but you at least have some ideas on how to keep you going to get there and still save money. If you're not saving money, you absolutely can make that decision. This isn't working for us. I believe you're going to save money, and I believe it's going to be really evident and easy to see.
Isn't the ultimate goal, though, and I understand that if you're not saving money, but isn't the ultimate goal really to have smarter separation for better recycling?
The ultimate goal obviously is to reduce better materials management so that you are left with limited disposal long term. But it takes a little while to get to all those places.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Kristen and Pam and Chris. And I think if you will hang out for a moment, we're going to call up our director, Steve Sopelak.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So I totally agree. We need to do something. So my job here, hold on, somebody's phone?
Sorry. I lost it.
Before you lose it, is to give you the facts as I have them and lay it out for you. I'm not going to make decision yay or nay. I'm not going to recommend one way or the other, but I just want to give you the facts that I have. First of all, we keep going back to Meriden. The one thing that you don't hear about Meriden is it's not in their taxes. So they're out paying their own trash fee, so they have a lot more incentive to do this. So just keep that in your mind. That's, all right, change glasses. I think the unit base is a great way to go. I don't know how you implement it because, as Chris can attest to, they tried it in West Hartford, didn't go well. But I mean, we all pay for what we use for fuel, for electricity, and all that. Yet we're all going to pay equal amounts for trash. So I think the unit base makes the most sense. I will look into Mansfield and Stonington and see how they've done it. What else here? So we talk about going to country in Wallingford, and there's a lot of talk that we talked about that. So we have a contract that we just signed with Murphy Road to bring our trash for the next 4 years, $110, $110, $115, $115 a ton for tipping. That includes the trash and the recycling. Country did bid on that, and they weren't selected because they were higher and further. So they're an extra 20 miles each way. So it's an extra 40 miles round trip times, it said 252 trucks. That's an extra 10,000 miles a year times $5, $6, $7 a gallon in diesel fuel, and all the pollution that you're going to be putting, and the what you're going to do to the roads. So it's 40 miles round trip. I don't know how many trucks a day. Is trash really going to have to put on extra trucks for us? Or are we going to have a Saturday collection? So there's logistics there. And I'm sure they're going to charge us more because of just the fuel costs. And if they have to put it on separate. And then once it's there, somebody has to load it into another truck and bring it through Rocky Hill back to Hartford. So that's another thought. I do understand that Murphy Road is building a state-of-the-art recycling facility. I don't know what they're going to have. They told me it's like a $30-35 million facility. I'm not sure if they're going to be doing any kind of, like what they're talking here. I don't know if they would sort for us. That's something we'd have to ask. But the logistics of going all the way to, it's not Wallingford. This plant is almost in North Haven. It's so far south into Wallingford. I don't know if you know Route 5 in Wallingford, but it's like near the Pratt and Whitney. That's almost in North Haven. So it's a trek. Our transfer station, I wouldn't recommend it. Doing the sorting, any kind of trash there. I have to look into the permitting. As Councilor Greenspan said, it is kind of a nightmare. We do have a robust recycling program here. We do have a robust curbside pickup. Everything from toasters to carpets to the mattresses. We have 2 full-time guys every day picking up, so it is a robust program. It does get used. So I think we do our share of recycling. We do participate in the shredding program twice a year. Huge program. We do have the thing with the paint. I forgot the name of it, but we do that. So we do have a pretty robust recycling program.
Do we still have pink bag?
We still do have pink bag, but they've changed the way it works. I think you presented that. Yeah. They don't pick up curbside anymore every week like they used to. You have to call out and arrange for the pickup. So kind of didn't work the way. It was working okay, I guess. But
Steve, tell them how we met with them, and we haven't heard from them since.
Yeah, we did meet with them. The vice president or something like that came in from the Midwest, and we talked, and we said, can we have a contract, just, one page, so we can, get up and running again. And so we posted all the stuff. He never signed his contract, never heard from him again. So,
because the reason why I'm asking that is because we need to give if we're going to go this route eventually, the least we could do is give our citizens an opportunity, outlets, so they can reduce, so they don't have to buy as many bags.
Right. Well, pink bag it's listed on our website with the contact information you have to do. We do get a call every once in a while. Somebody wants to know about it. It is out there. The information's out there. It's just you now have to make the effort to call them to arrange for a pickup. So I think a lot of people might also use Big Brothers Big Sisters. There's a veterans group that does it. There's the drop-off bins. So it's not as convenient as it once was. The pilot program, I think I agree with the 1 year. As you know, a lot of times the newness, everybody jumps on board something when it's new. I'm going to participate, I'm going to do this, like joining a gym, and after 30 days you quit. So, I think the 1 year makes sense to see if, if people stick with it. Curbside, I'm just looking at all my notes I've been making as we've gone along here. So, we talk about the numbers.
Steve, our ability to call in to get pickups, brush, how many times a year can residents call for yard debris? And how many times a year can we call to have you come get a refrigerator or a
refrigerators
couch?
And all that, it's any day. You can call them multiple times. Brush is scheduled 3 times a year. And we just finished for the spring. We have a summer, and then we have a fall. Leaf collection we do every day in the fall until basically they're gone or the snow flies. Christmas tree collection, we also do that starting the January one. We do basically all of January. So we do have all these collections, and we go around until it's all picked up. We also talk about the reduction of food scraps, and so running the DEEP website and then a bunch of other things, the average is 23% is food scrap, your tonnage. And then of that, 43% comes from homes, 40% comes from restaurants, grocery stores, food service industry. So to your point, why aren't we, let's get the schools and the restaurants and all those kind of folks involved. And then the rest are like agriculture and other things. We have 6,500 carts that we pick up. So that goes back to the transportation. We still have to pick up 6,500 carts, whether it's 1 bag, 2 bags, 3 bags. So, and if they're driving an extra 40 miles, we have to account for those 6,500 carts somehow. So, and then of course, staff would want full support from you folks, the town council. We get calls all the time. Like I had one at Christmas. They didn't pick up my trash. Well, yes, they did. Well, but I left the bags next to the trash bin. They weren't in the bin. I said, well, they don't get out. It's automatic. No, you have to come back. And then they call the manager, and they call the mayor, and they call everybody on the town council, and somehow we end up going picking it up. So, that's going to be, we need full support that we implement this program. These are the rules, and this is how it has to be done. So, I think that's it from listening and my observations and things. So as I said, it's something that desperately needs to be done. It's just how are we going to implement it? Lots of questions.
Does anyone have any questions of Steve?
I do. Steve, so the 4-year commitment that we just entered into with Murphy Road, so we're paying a unified amount for regular solid waste and recyclables, correct?
Correct.
So to the extent that we do a program then that encourages greater recycling, that kind of shifts the ratio from the green bin to the blue bin, it doesn't save the town any money, right?
Still the same price.
Okay. And then, the concept we were talking about here was going to Wallingford, instead, which is where the sorting is, we know is going to be set up. We don't know what the future holds with Murphy Road. This 4-year...
Murphy Road is solid. It's Mira that's not.
Okay, so the program that's under discussion here right now, so is it possible to do it at Murphy Road rather than Wallingford?
We don't know. We'd have to speak with the management there, and if
That's
they
what I
have
meant.
that facility. Like I said, they're building a new recycling facility. I don't know what their end game is with it. It's under construction.
So the 4-year contract that we have, I mean, does it have any out clauses? Is there a cancellation for convenience clause or anything
I'd
like
have
that?
to go read it. I really don't know. Do you know, John?
It probably does have something where you have to give them so much notice to do something like that.
I just want to get a sense of, does that 4-year contract, does that tie our hands here in terms of being able to do anything? That's what
I'm just saying, yes, we probably have a way out of it, but we have to give appropriate notice and so on. But
okay.
then
Is there an
again,
exit fee if you do that?
I no, I don't believe there is one.
It would make sense if we're going to have country be our place that we bring our trash
No,
for
Steve,
sorting.
they
It would make
said that
sense
we were going to bring the trash to the dumpster, to the transfer station, and
Maybe.
country was going to come pick it up.
Well, that was one option, but the other
That
option
way,
was we
then
take it.
then Trash Away doesn't have to drive 40 miles.
Right.
They have less miles to drive,
But
but
if-
they don't have to go.
If we
Well,
can't
we're
use the
not
transfer,
deciding that tonight, right? I mean, all of these things that we're kicking around, which I think are very good questions, they would require their own due diligence on the contract, on the transfer station appropriateness. You know, this the dumpster concept. You know, it sounds like it's worked in other places. Will it work in ours? We don't know. I don't think we're looking to commit tonight to the specific location, right? Like, we'd all require their own due diligence and have the right people look them over.
But I guess the question is, do we need to have some of those answers before we decide about what we want to do with the grant? Like, we don't want to put ourselves in a box where, well, we can't do that one and we can't do that one without this. You know, I don't know the answer. I'm just asking the question.
Well, what would the scope of the grant be? It wouldn't be prescriptive to these specific vendors.
I understand we have a contract with the state, so that contract with the state would probably explain what type of constrictions we have with the grant.
So one question I have about the grant, can the grant money be used to do a study?
So I was going to say, maybe Chris can step in if he's still there. But so first, the just quick on the All-American or USA Hauling, your contract for disposal.
yeah, they're called Murphy Road.
Yeah, so it's a disposal contract based on tonnage. So if your tonnage reduces, you do save money. So it's not a fixed cost. It's just a fixed $110 a ton for the next 2 years. So if you go from 5,000 tons of residential trash disposed down to 1,700 tons, you do save money. The town does save money on the contract. It's not a fixed price.
No, I was speaking specifically up to the extent that by implementing this program, that people are just more diligent about putting stuff in the blue bin rather than the green bin. I realize that there's other elements to savings that you've talked about. I was talking specifically about that part of it, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Chris, I might let you answer some of those other questions. Yeah.
Yeah, just the question about whether DEEP would fund a study at this point, that's really not what we're looking for. I think the Commissioner's looking for projects that will actually reduce waste. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we've got a lot of applications in already, so we do think we may be oversubscribed and we'll be making decisions on either scaling back or not awarding some contracts unless more money potentially comes in. So we are looking for, to actually get projects going. Just to clarify, the new state-of-the-art recycling facility in Berlin, that is for your kind of traditional recyclables, bottles, cans, paper. So they wouldn't be doing any sorting of trash or co-collected trash and organic there, if we're kind of sorting the stuff that would go in your recycling bin.
So I guess one question about submitting a grant application at this juncture. I mean, to what extent do we have to have a fully mature concept figured out, like right now, before we submit the application, versus kind of getting the wheels turning on a process, but understanding that it sounds like there's a lot of moving parts here that we have to figure out. I mean, I don't see how we could do a traditional application right now. What's our deadline, like in a week? That has all these elements we've been talking about already figured out. So, how much specificity do we need right now as opposed to a placeholder? We have some money reserved, but we have a lot of things we got to figure out that can't be done in the next week.
Can I just add, so we're talking about if we can't use the transfer station and the material goes to country, it would make sense to have our contract with them rather than put it back on a truck and come back. So we'd have to see if there's an out, because they do the same thing. So it makes sense for them to dispose of it.
So that's one of the many moving parts we're talking about
Exactly.
right now
But
that we
they
need time to
caught-
figure out.
Yes, but their
But
cost
why-
was a little higher.
Right, so why would we do that if their cost is higher and potentially this might not work?
But what's our shipping charge going to be to ship it the 28 or 30 miles back to Murphy?
Well, it won't
there's
be
a
any-
tipping fee,
it-
but there's going to the first year.
The first year won't
First
be
year,
anything.
but after that,
It's
there's going to be these
crapshoot,
fees.
yeah.
So that's something we should probably need to analyze.
Well, I think what we have in place right now, we have to stay with. And as Kristen's been saying, all these additional costs we're talking about is going to be covered by the grant for the first 6 or 12 months. And then when you get to that point, if it's worthwhile, this somehow works out so it's profitable or money saving, the decisions would be made later on in the year. So we're sort of committed to our Murphy Road. We went through a process to do all this with 2 other towns and so on. But again, all these additional costs we're talking about is supposedly going to be covered by the grant. And then when we get to the end of the grant, then the judgment would be made, is it worthwhile continuing this on without that netting of the grant to support it?
I think one way to look at it that makes it a little bit simpler, because I know that this seems complicated, all the back and forth. If you meet the goals that I think you'll meet, your trash volume will go down from a little over 5,000 tons of residential waste to just over 1,500 tons of residential waste. So if you are shipping 5,000 tons to Pennsylvania, long-term or even short-term, there is going to be savings if you really are only generating that 1,500 tons. If it looks like as you're going through this pilot, you're never going to hit those numbers, then it makes it a lot easier to make a decision. But remember, that's a long distance that you have to ship it. So even though you might have to go in this little quirky fashion for 4 or 5 years of a contract, it might still be worth it to you because the net savings is still higher. It's still less transportation and less material moving around, even though it's a little bit quirky. And then next time, as some of you have mentioned, as you go out to bid for the next contract, you can build into it all of the new nuances to your program. Right now, when you went out to bid, you went out with 2 other towns, and you didn't have all of these nuances, and you didn't know about any of these opportunities. But moving forward, hopefully this pilot can help inform how you make those decisions going forward.
If we apply for the grant and then we find that we don't have the permitting or there's just we're stuck on a contract that we can't get out of, we cannot accept the grant? So we lose nothing by applying for the grant?
Right, exactly, right.
But have we pushed out other applicants? Because how does that work? So let's say we're awarded the grant and then we say, okay, we can't do it, we can't accept it. It's just, it goes back into the pool and it goes to the next town.
And Kristen and I already have an application all written out, so it's done. You just have to read it. Yeah, it's all done.
Would another potential option be if we apply for the grant, we could either, I guess, release it or as a fallback, just do a 1-year pilot of pay as you throw, which would be, there's the whole, we would love to do everything all at once and have all these questions answered. Right. Although I do think that as complicated as this seems to be, this is probably the same thing that every town that's ever implemented this program has been able to figure out.
Right.
It's probably never happened in a way that it's lined up so everybody's contracts are up for renewal at the same time. So there's probably something, there that, we need to figure these out, but they can be figured out, like it's possible. But as a fallback, as an interim, we could probably just do pay as you throw as a...
Yeah, but the way I think of it is, this is a pilot for a reason. This is why we have a 1-year pilot. We can figure this out while we do the pilot. I don't think there is any need to really fret about all these questions being answered to everybody's satisfaction before we commit to this. That's why we are doing a pilot.
Yeah. It wasn't that everybody's contract expired at once. It's Mira's closing their trash to energy. They're still taking trash, but they're closing trash to energy, so everybody's searching.
But we're also thinking about, that's what's happening in our little region of Connecticut. It's being used throughout New England, too. This is something that, we're usually, Connecticut's a couple years behind everybody else, so I think it's facing us now.
So, okay, we can't have the chit-chat back and forth, okay? So, Steve, I know that you said you didn't want to weigh in, but, or John, is there a recommendation that this is due Monday, right? We could potentially vote on it Thursday at budget, but that's only a couple of days, and I don't precisely know all the things we have to look into. And to Councilor Prakash's point, I do think that a lot of it we can work out as we go, and we may just get to the point where, maybe we're not even awarded, but if we are, we have to pull out. Is that put you in a bad position?
No. I mean, are there questions you want answered that we can get for Thursday?
Well, I think we have to know, first of all, do we need a permit? Do we even have the space? Are you comfortable with this pickup, or would you prefer
I gotta
them
know what
haul?
the bin. I don't know what the bins are. What they need. Pulling in, turning radiuses for the trucks. Who's going to be hauling this? It sounds like country, but I don't know. So I
if
need to know
the
what
funding
they are.
is there for us not to use the transfer station, it sounds like it would probably be easier if we just don't use our transfer station.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so that eliminates a big component right there. Right.
And maybe Chris knows here, but we do. I mean, we are a licensed, permitted transfer. I don't know if it's something separate to have the truck come in and dump, because that stuff's gonna be going all over the ground when they miss and all that. We don't have a ramp even, so they can't just back up and dump into the thing.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that. You would have to speak with our permitting person, Frank Gagliardo, who's been involved with this. He can answer, what can and can't be done
who's
under
that?
a municipal transfer
Frank
station
Gagliardi.
Permit.
Oh yeah, he's been on the calls. Yeah. Okay.
So what is the approximate turnaround time from when the application is submitted to getting a response? Because that kind of gives us that window, to figure some of this stuff out, and then we get the award and we decide whether to accept it or not. Can you give us a sense, weeks, months? What are we talking about here? I think that's a question for the deep people.
Yeah, I think Chris.
So we're looking to, once the deadline ends, there's a team at Deep reviewing the grant applications. We'll have to finish reviewing them all, send recommendations to the commissioner. She'll review, those recommendations and act upon them. And she'll weigh in on which ones she wants to have move forward. We're kind of trying to take a look now at ones that, she called no-brainers that we should kind of maybe give initial green light to. But I think, realizing that there is some administrative work to be done to execute a contract between the town and the agency, we want to get moving on that pretty quickly. So I think, late May would maybe be a goal for us, having a list of the projects that, got a green light to move forward. We could notify the towns and then start on the next steps.
And then how long would the towns have, to decide whether they want to accept the grant or not?
That I have to check with our business office. I know there are some timing issues with the grant. The money that we got from the legislature, it was good for one fiscal year. We fully expect they're going to roll it over. So we're working with our central business office on figuring out all the kind of timing and logistics. But I think at any point, even after say a contract was executed, if for whatever reason, town says, what, we've kind of reevaluated and this is not going to work for us. You're not under any obligation to continue to move forward. So if at any point you kind of feel like this is not going to work, don't feel committed to it.
Chris, and what do we do with respect to like our current hauler? How do, I would assume we have to have some conversations and have other municipalities have those conversations with, hey, we're going to go in sort of a different direction. This is what we need from you.
Yeah, I mean, clearly that's going to be a town by town decision. And if a hauler is being compensated, let's say you decide you want your hauler to drive it down to country, they're going to say, well, our contract with you is that we'll drive it to a destination within X miles, and you want us to drive it to X miles. We need to be compensated for that. So I think that's a negotiation that every town needs to figure out, depending on their location and where they want it to go to. But at the end of the day, the haulers are service providers to the town, and if you say, well, we'll pay for whatever the incremental cost is to get that done, I would hope that they would be accommodating.
And that number's figured in, and with inflation, presumably, in gas.
No,
And
I figured in that number for the pilot, and also just as far as other towns go. Some haulers have said, yeah, no big deal, we'll just do it. Other haulers, it's been a little bit further distance. However, the line at their current facility is long, and the line at Country isn't long, so they're like, well, we'll just do it anyway. So there's a few factors that factor in, but I did count on pickup from Country, which would be the max. So I feel like if your hauler is willing to take it, even if it's a little bit more, then I've budgeted enough where they're going to be pleased.
so, Steve, that's one of the things we need to have answered.
Yeah, I've come up with some questions here so far. Is we need to speak with our hauler. Will they go there? What would the fees be? Who's going to haul it back to Murphy Road? If we were go with the transfer station, do we have the permit? What is needed? Because to dump, I would think that you have to have a ramp and dump it into the thing. We don't have that structure there. There's no scale there, so I don't know. Are they going to weigh the dumpsters that are coming in and just or does Trash Rate want to know each unit that they're bringing in rather
Well,
than
not only
somebody
that,
else's?
but we're not even open. Isn't that we're not even open every day of the week?
No,
So
we're
now
not.
that's
We're
a
not a
cost to
5-day
us,
week.
right?
No,
Yeah,
so somebody
this-
would have to be there opening. I mean, a couple trucks a day. They could probably come. I guess they could probably come through the regular facility and sneak on down there somehow if we had the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, so I guess, so not to belabor the point, we could obviously take a vote tonight, right? I think it's a little soon, I don't know. Or, we can put a motion on the table for that, or we can put a motion on the table to work under the gun, and we have our next meeting on Thursday and put it on the agenda for Thursday and talk amongst yourselves a little bit. And we can entertain either motion.
I mean, it kind of sounds like we have a free option if we vote on it anyway, from what everybody's saying. We can get out of it at any particular stage. So I don't know if we're going to learn a lot between now and Thursday. Either way, we have an out one way or the other. If Steve comes back with information that's not as hopeful as we would like, So I don't know if we make sense to wait or just do it tonight.
I suppose we could always have another future vote if we needed to cancel
Undo
or
it.
to stop the process, right? I mean, I don't foresee that it's likely, but. Madam Mayor, may I offer a motion?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so at this time, I move that we instruct the staff to move forward with submitting a grant application to DEEP, a recycling grant for a one-year pilot program, including both elements of unit-based pricing and food waste diversion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
So, oops, sorry. So I mean, as my questioning probably has made clear, I'm kind of two minds. I mean, certainly this is something that has to be done. The question is when. I think the closure of the Mira plant, which is right upon us, makes this a very, very logical time to do this. It gives us a rationale as we're selling the concept to people in town. Well, why now? That's why. We have we're at an inflection point on this for reasons beyond our control, and if we're going to rip the Band-Aid off, this is time to do it. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, my personal preference would be a little more cautious, more systematic scope, getting some more of the questions answered and figuring out some of the details before we get into this. But I think on balance, we have some, escape routes if necessary, which can allay, kind of those concerns. And I trust our staff to figure out the questions and get us the answers in due course. So I think, on balance, I think the better course is to move ahead with this, get our questions answered sooner the better, and acknowledge the reality that we're in, that this is where the world is going, and we can either be a leader or a follower. Let's be a leader.
I think I agree with you, because I think, obviously we didn't create this trash crisis, but we're in the thick of it, and we have to respond and imagine, being an innovator and a leader in this area is something super exciting. It's also something that's very scary, right? But like you said, there are escape hatches for us, and I think we're safe. And as long as it's not costing anything to our taxpayers and it's not creating a burden for your department, I think is equally important. Then I think it is a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't see a downside to applying for the grant because we have the out options. We have time to get the answers that we need.
Yep.
And I'll agree with a lot of that. I think this is an opportunity, call it a free opportunity to learn. And if we're awarded a grant, we can do it. The fearful part is 2 years from now, we may be forced to do it on our own and have to put our money up to do it.
Yep.
So take the gift, if we get it, and see how it runs. We'll figure out the details as we move forward.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, there's always going to be a bigger priority until it either hits us in the face because the costs going to alternatives are too high, or if we don't have the ability to do this on our own. This is a great way of getting a lot of data very quickly with some help from the state, which is going to be a great impetus to actually do it and learn from it, because the cost, we just see it's going up. It's been going up, astronomically year after year. It's not going to change until perhaps, because of projects like this, some local businesses respond and start, and building up the type of more sustainable local solutions that we've been hearing about. So we can be part of that solution, save ourselves some money, and also get some data pretty fast on learning how we can walk a better path over the next number of years. Or we wait until it becomes an emergency, like you mentioned, and at a time where we're not going to have the help from the state, and we're probably going to make a fast decision. At least we're going to start, even just having this conversation has surfaced so many questions that we know we need to get answers to. That's been progress. So let's, move forward, then learn some more.
Yeah, and I think in my view, it is a no-brainer as well. So it's on a cost, zero cost basis right now for us. And at the same time, I think if we do it right and we have the data and it supports, I'm cautiously optimistic, by the way, because human behavior is hard to change. But people change when they need to. So there is that, right? So hopefully, we'll get on the other side, and it'll be a positive outcome. And with all the infrastructure stuff we have been talking about, it's kind of timely because we have these ARPA funds, right? And I don't know where we can use them, but I think this if we need infrastructure changes, Steve, I was thinking, right? Maybe I don't want to start another topic here, but we already have it on the agenda, right? But I think there is an opportunity here to grab this, this path and see where we end up with this. Yeah.
Thank you for indulging our questions.
All right, so all in favor? Aye. Oh my God, I'm sweating. Yeah, can we?
Yeah, I know.
We'd like to take a 5-minute recess, if that's
Madam
okay.
Mayor, I'll make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, motion to come out of recess.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Oh. We're going to move on to Section 4, Approval of Minutes, subsection A, Town Council meeting, April 18th, 2022.
Madam Mayor, make a motion to approve the town council meetings April 18th, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Subsection B, Town Council Budget Workshop, April 21st, 2022.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the Town Council Budget Workshop from April 21st, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I guess I abstain, not being there.
Okay. One abstention. Moving on to Subcommittee Reports, A, Finance.
Yeah, Finance has not met. Our next meeting scheduled for May 12th has been canceled due to no pressing items on the agenda and the budget workshops.
Gotcha. Government Ops.
Government Operations met earlier today. Just a couple of highlights. The roll-down window between the kitchen and the multipurpose room has been installed. Firehouse 3, they've met with engineers for bidding preparation for the work that need to be done there. There's work being done at the police station in regards to moving the women's locker room to allow for more room space for the female officers. Stevens School has hired an HVAC engineer for design work needed there for the HVAC system work that's going to be done. They're going to be applying for the roof replacement GMS with the state to get grant money to hopefully reimburse as much as 42% of the roof. And there's going to be some upgrading to some of the GMS science labs starting in June. Should be done by the start of the school year, hopefully. A couple things. The Elmridge Park grant, we had a talk with Craig Bowman. They met with the architects, and they're coming with some interesting concepts about some ADA accessible trails, possibly removing the skate park to allow for more parking, pickleball courts, multi-sport court, and something called Kevin's Court, which is adaptive basketball court with different size hoops and wheelchair accessibility, and will tie in with Miracle Field, which will be right in that same area. They're working on getting some rough estimates for the cost, which will probably exceed the $400,000 grant they have received from the state. Maybe there's ARPA money to use, or we'll have to figure out once we have a better handle on the costs, at that point. They would be removing possibly this backstop of the fencing at Players Field to make it more of a functional general green space over there. And their next planning meeting is May 10th, where they'll start to nail down some of those costs I mentioned. And our next meeting will be on June 4th.
Thank you. Public Safety.
We did not meet. Next meeting is May 16th at 5:30.
Thank you. Senior Liaison.
Also, we did not meet. Next meeting is May 23rd.
Land Acquisition and Farmland Preservation.
Madam Mayor, we did meet on April 26th, and at that meeting, the Yukon consultants gave us an updated overlay of the site. So I direct all folks to take a look at the last farmland YouTube, so they could see the layout for a walking trail, community gardens, the Kohanek barn, the entrances to the parcel B. The big news at the meeting was that we were out to bid. We had numerous contractors. I'll turn to John on that. 21 contractors, and bid ends for tomorrow.
We went out to bid for the demolishing of the house and so on, and then there was a walkthrough a couple weeks ago, and there was 21 contractors showing up, probably all with various services that could be provided for that removal of the house and so on. And I believe the bids are due back Wednesday,
Yep,
the 4th. Is it?
correct, yep, opening at 11.
It'll be.
the 4th, with the contract
again,
to be awarded on
the-
June 1st.
No, well, with the caveat is the state's involved, 2 agencies will have to review the results and the recommendations or something like that. So as quickly as the state allows us to award, the town to award, we will do it. And it'd be nice it'd be June 1st, but always
And we are
remember
cautiously optimistic that the house will
with the state.
be removed from the site this year. And John, when is our next meeting for farmland?
Probably the 24th.
May 24th at 6 o'clock.
All right, liaison to the state rep and state senator.
No report.
School liaison,
No report, Madam Mayor.
Capital Improvements Committee,
No meeting, no report.
Economic Development Subcommittee,
Also, no meeting, no report.
and Town Manager Search Committee.
Sure, we did meet the subcommittee of Councilor O'Sullivan and Councilor Levine, myself, and staff Dana McGee to discuss going out to bid to get executive search firms, and we had 4 really good, solid executive search firms come in. Between ourselves and our respective caucuses, we did come down with a unanimous choice to be voted on tonight in this section, later on in new business, discussion and possible action. So I thank Councilor O'Sullivan for putting that motion into play tonight for later in the meeting. That being said, that's the end of the report.
Thank you. There is nothing on the consent agenda, so we will go into old business discussion, possible action, ARPA funding options.
Mona provided a report.
Yep.
Okay. And I'll just kind of go quickly through it. I had 3 pages out in front of your section. And I wanted to just kind of do a highlight of where we are on ARPA, and we've made reference to lists. So just kind of going back a little bit in time, that when the ARPA funding started was May of 2021, and we were under the interim rule. So with the interim rule, we did the allocation of the $1.4 million into the 21-22 budget for the $1.4 million. At that time, the interim rule had the categories that I've got listed here: the public health, safety, negative impact, so forth, premium pay, revenue loss, and I'm sure you've all heard me say 1,000 times during that phase that we were not meeting the eligible level of revenue loss because of the formula at that time. Infrastructure, which was more of the broadband. Of course, we did the $1.4 million of that tranche. The $2.9 million we had, that piece was coming. We were doing council resolutions on what to do with the remaining pieces, individual allocations. So for reporting purposes, we just did a recent report to the federal government, and the $1.4 million and the parts that are getting allocated individually get reported as one group. So regardless whether it's in the general fund budget or if it's an individual allocation, it's still considered ARPA. Okay. Of course, now, as we get ready to do another budget, they give us the final rule. So fortunately, with the final rule, you still have those same original categories, except they broadened them quite a bit. And that allowed us to do things such as the public health and safety and the negative impact. And again, this is very high level. We've probably been in depth and in detail in the past. Before, they talked about you could do rehiring back to the pre-COVID level. So that was back in the 1920 staffing levels, and then you closed programs, you didn't have parks, you didn't have libraries, the senior center closed. So it used to be that you could only go back up to what was before COVID. So now when the final rule comes out, they say you can take your FTEs and go up to 7.5%. That's new. And of course, they streamlined the revenue loss, which was great for us because now we didn't have to meet the formula. That would leave that full 2 tranches, $5.9 million, that we could use for government service. So this tiny little 3B actually is probably the most summarized version from the final rule, as it says, not limited to. But I think it's probably the best summarized version of what the final rule covers. So it does tell us we can do pay-as-you-go funding for building and maintenance. So, of course, that's any maintenance type project that's not funded. So those type of things like, you know, the HVACs and the roof at the firehouse and so forth, those type of things that we're not going out and bonding for. It does include roads, but I think as a rule, we have other funding sources, town aid road, municipal grants and aid. So I haven't put on the list that you'll see on the next page anything related to roads, because we have to meet those state requirements, use the funds for that first. So I haven't really addressed them with ARPA at all. Other than that, we've got infrastructure, and we focus a lot on the health services, human services, education, police, fire, and public safety. So that'd be the high level of what ARPA's about. To the next page, there's a lot of numbers.
Mona, can I ask you something before we get to the next page?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't like 3B pretty much means anything but pensions and tax cuts, maybe?
It does. And if
But-
you read through, if you really wanted to read through the final rule, but yes, it says anything basically that you would fund with your general budget dollars.
Okay.
Is probably the even easier way to say that. And it doesn't include pension and debt or anything, legal settlements and so forth. There's a number of things it doesn't include, but it is basically anything that you would put in your general budget.
Okay, thank you.
And you
I have a
mentioned,
question. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
yeah, you'd mentioned things that hadn't yet been funded, and you mentioned some of the roads. But what about the roads that we haven't yet drawn down the bonds? We have the opportunity to bond out for that more road. Is that something? Not saying that we would do that, but is that something for the balance of the existing project? We could potentially use these funds to offset having to bond.
Well, again, if it's anything that'd be bonded, so then it wouldn't be a pay-as-you-go.
Okay, so if even though we haven't drawn down the bond,
Correct.
the fact that it's there would exclude it from. Okay,
Exactly.
thanks.
That was my question as well.
So to give you an idea, and I won't go through each one, you can take these and study them and, ask questions later, because it's very late. I won't do that. But to give you an idea of what you're looking at on page 2, I showed you what happens on tranche 1 when we adopted the 21-22. So again, we put $1.4 million in as a source of revenue. So within your general fund budget, things definitely had to fit according to the interim rule, which was very finite. So I had, for your list, descriptions in that column called description that fit in that definition of the interim rule, which was very, very strict. So now with that similar approach for 22-23, as you know, in the proposed budget, we put $1.4 million. Using the similar format, not getting, too far off, but also keeping in mind now that you've got more freedom in the capital items. There's some additional items because now we can do things like the fire transmitters and that type of thing. Of course, we could, start all over and just say, I'm funding the entire police department and just throw the list away. But for sake of keeping it consistent for auditing and reporting, the listing and tracking them line by line has worked for reporting to the federal government. This is the list that we used to create the proposed budget to say the $1.4 million. Also, I know we've looked at the third page, which is the amounts that we've been giving the individual allocations. So for tranche 1, $1.4 million is already in the general fund. $1,092,000 was allocated for various projects, although we didn't spend that all. So with the two tranches together, the $5.9 million and the $1.4 each fiscal year, we would still have at this point in time over $2 million either not given to a project or not given to a budget. I listed a few other items that have not been identified with ARPA, but they have potential as you're going through your budget reviews. And I'm sure if you look further into the budget details, you may see things that fit into it. As you know, the broad definition is just that, a very broad definition.
It just reminds when you have to have these funds spent by?
You have to have them committed by the 2024, December 2024, spent by 2026.
This is wonderful. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Very helpful.
And Mona, sorry, just on one of the items on the possible additions to list that I didn't see that always comes up that we don't really seem to have an answer for is the pool at Elmridge Park.
Right.
Would that be something that potentially we could use the ARPA funds now?
Again, if you're looking on that definition of pay-as-you-go, if you wanted to do some patch up, some repairs, yes. If you were going to do, if you look deeper into that definition of the final rule, any project that's over $1 million has to go in and get special, I guess, permission, you'd say, from the federal government. So try to avoid things at that level. But if you wanted to allocate $1 million toward that, if that's the amount of the project.
Yeah, is that where we're at? I thought it was at 600 for a while, but I don't know.
I think they had that earmarked at that point, but I don't know if that was the final price. That's just how much we had accumulated.
But to Chris's point, could you theoretically take that money, pay the police force, and use the money you were going to pay the police force to do the pool?
Sort of like a shell game.
But
Well, I mean, you
but
kinda
looks like
lose
you can
anyway.
directly do the pool. I don't see why can't you directly do the pool though.
I mean, I'm not saying we should. I'm just asking theoretically.
No, I'm saying theoretically too.
Well, could you?
Just budget $1 million, you got to
Yeah.
budget less than $1 million.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Or
And-
do
and-
the pool and go to the federal government, tell them I'd like to do a pool, and then they may or may not say this is, in their opinion, the best use of their ARPA money, so they will make that decision.
But we could fund things in the capital improvement year by year, as long as it's committed by 24. So this year, we could put a little aside for the pool, next year a little bit, right?
Again, as long as it's not a bonded project, if it's something
Yep.
similar to, as we were talking about the Griswold, which one was it? Yeah, the roof that we're doing, the 1.6, if you needed a portion of that to go toward it, then we're not bonding it. They're just doing different allocations.
And the $1 million threshold, the risk is just that they wouldn't say, yeah, we have to do some paperwork, which I don't want to downplay how much doing that paperwork.
Yeah, it seems a bit involved that you have to say that there's, a definite need for it and, to give some, I guess, some.
But
kind
the
of
worst thing that would be to happen in that
blueprint-type
case, like,
things.
we wouldn't lose the $1 million. They just would say no to our project. We could reallocate it somewhere else.
That's correct.
If we did have any project
they
that
turned you
exceeded the
down.
million.
Awesome. All right, thank you. I don't think we want to discuss ARPA tonight, right? We were good.
Item that Steve's been past his bedtime staying up for,
Okay.
relating to that building department software program that when we had this discussion about his budget and so on, there was an initial cost associated to getting the software program up and running as well as transferring the data over. And we thought that would be a good an item that we could request ARPA funds to help transition over to a upgrade to the building permits software system.
Is that in the possible uses category?
It could with the hardware,
Page 2.
software, modernization, and so forth. And it would be something that you may allocate your general fund dollars to. So it would fit in your definition. If that's what you wanted to do.
We're looking for a motion.
Don't we
So
usually
Steve,
have
do you have a
just
final
rough
number,
amount? Do we have them out?
what you might need?
And this is
I
the
think you
same
said
application that we
53
discussed last time,
Mhm.
which tied into the assessor, but it's just his piece.
Right.
Just this piece, yes.
Yeah, so the proposal is, the yearly fee is $23,920, but we asked them to take off a module, so it's a little, it's 4,000 something off of that. And then the startup cost for the
Yep.
professional service development is $53,650. So that's to get them up and rolling, and then there's the annual fee. I have that here. It was, there's so many sheets here. It was 4,000. Where's the module? Is roughly 4,000 off.
So you need 53 to set it up?
Yeah.
That number we're looking for
it's
tonight?
53,650 to get it going. And I got to find out how, let's see, permitted licensing and code 2 service areas. We're only getting to get 1. Start date 5/1/22, end date 4/30/23. And I don't know, I can't imagine we pay for that up front because it's not working yet. That's a question I have to ask. So.
Are you looking for us to do this tonight, or do you want to just have John report back to us Thursday and we do it at that budget meeting?
John?
Just do the
Well,
53,000
I think I went through my whole dissertation with the intention of getting $53,000 to set it up so we can start moving forward with it.
Yeah.
So I
Fair enough.
request that decision be made tonight if you think it's a good use of ARPA money to upgrade them. So I'd recommend tonight, yea or nay, to move forward with it.
Yeah, and this is the one you told us, like, we didn't have the person there anymore. So we already
Correct.
heard this.
Correct. Yes.
Steve, just a question on that. I wasn't at the workshop, but I spent some time listening to the video. It was very entertaining. I ended it about where you were, and Councilor O'Sullivan was asking some questions about, we have a contract in place for somebody, but, and I may be paraphrasing it, but it doesn't seem like we're getting the services under the contract you have in place.
We're not.
And then you alluded to multiple departments are using this software, but you're the only one that seems to be broken. Or my...
So it was brought on board real quick by the assessor about 10 years ago. And we sat in this room, presentation, just about every department here in Town Hall was represented who could use it. And they're vetted. Everybody said, great. They were brought on board, contract. And over the years, I don't know, because I wasn't involved at this point, I don't know if they came to us or we went to them and said, hey, we got to do something about our building permits. So they built something for us. And they were trying to expand their business. So we're like the guinea pig. So they built this program and really over the years went in a different direction, actually probably improved it and packaged it, not as robust as what we have, and kind of left us behind. And the guy who wrote it, their chief architect of the program, left a couple weeks ago. So no one else there except the owner, is really up to speed on that and trying to pin down the owner. He's been pretty, not very accommodating, pretty rude letters he's written us. So it's a regional firm. It's not a national. It's a regional firm. As I said, they're brought in to do our GIS platform, which is all our mapping, which we're using. But even, I guess, Stuart just yesterday or something was at a seminar because I heard from another person, and he's getting frustrated too.
So is this 56,000 just your module, or is it the whole system that's encompassing?
This is just the building department software. We'd still have to find somebody to host our GIS in the future. Right now, we still have this contract with this guy. He's hosting our GIS. That's the mapping portion.
All right, so I guess what I don't understand is why aren't we looking to one company that handles all of this? I mean, we're a municipality. Everybody's
True.
looking for the
Well,
same.
and everybody has their own unique program. I don't know if they host the GIS. Not everybody will host it. That's its own animal. It's kind of like I use a CAD program to draw with, but they don't do, say, work orders. Then there's a work order company, but they don't do GIS, but they link with the GIS. So everybody's kind of got their piece of the pie. It's not one company that does everything. It's not like the Home Depot approach.
We did ask Steve, like, does the IT department look at all this kind of stuff, right?
John was with us. John.
Yeah, it just seems like a Band-Aid approach to me, and it's
yeah.
And we're continuing to pay on a contract. I guess I don't know enough about the software, the logistics.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Like we're really fixing a problem, we're just Band-Aiding.
Steve, can I,
Yeah.
and don't mind me, I'm going to give a finance analogy, but I'd almost envision that when we did, because I happened to be there when they were doing this and getting it was our first building permit software, and I said I almost compare it to buying QuickBooks for a financial system, and I think as they've watched themselves grow, that they know that this isn't QuickBooks, that they really do need a system, and I think he's got a staff that needs an automated, permitting system, that they can't just do something where you type in, the little one-liner and call it a good permitting system.
Analogy.
The permitting system, we're finding that it works well with the tax office, for example, when you have a delinquent tax bill, that the tax office can actually send a file up if you can interface, and that, old QuickBook version, which they're trying to limp along on, does not accommodate that need. So there's so many things where they would be able to function better from a better system. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they just don't have it doesn't have the capacity
Right.
of what you are ready for and what you need.
And the IT people know, the industry changes lightning quick. This program just a couple years ago was nowhere near as robust as it is now. And this was put out to bid through CROG, and they vetted a number of companies, and they selected 2. So that they represent 40 some odd towns.
Are there any fees we're able to get back from them or not pay them because of the lack of service on this particular module? Or
I really don't think so.
it sounds like we're not getting what we were
as it
paying
is.
for.
It's to give you an idea. I think our annual fee for the building department is like $4,000 versus like $20,000. So kind of gives you an idea of where they're at versus somebody who does this on a larger scale.
Yeah, it is a very simplified system.
Yeah.
And I can tell that just working with their person that's doing the collections at the desk, that she would definitely benefit by having something that's more kind of interrelated. As I think they had mentioned before during the budget process with the permitting fee and the electrical fee and in all different forms, and then trying to put it into one collection group, and then having it work on the an online app, and it would be better to have something that's more interrelated.
Yeah, 10 years ago, there were not many
It's
people
not that it's a
doing
bad
this
system,
online.
but it's not the right system
Right.
for them anymore. You've outgrown it.
When it was first built, it wasn't even online. Couldn't do it online. That just came about within the last couple of years
Yeah.
for us. So it's evolving, but they haven't evolved quick enough. And this is a larger company. It's a nationwide company. They're out of California. This is what they do for a living, and they've grown themselves. As I said, the program 3-4 years ago was nowhere near as robust as it is now. And they do many, many modules, dog licenses and all that. But Sandy just got something different for dog licensing. So
should we make a motion for the exact amount, $53,650? Is that okay? Do we know that's the number?
I know that's good. We are. He told us we can pay in 2 different budget cycles if we want, but within 6
Just
months.
say 54,000. Nice round number.
But the 20,000 annual fee, I don't know if we pay that now, which doesn't make sense because it's not up and running, or when.
Well, we can still allocate it.
Should be when you're live.
Right, because
Worry
the
about it when it's
proposal is
up
for
and
the 2 prices combined for 77,000. As I said, we're taking one module off, so it'll be
Make
50.
a payment on a car that's still being manufactured.
So I'll make a motion that we allocate $54,000 of the ARPA money towards the new software for the building department, as Mr. Sopelak stated.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we're on to new business and subsection B, which is discussion about entering into a contract with SGR.
Correct.
Oh, I don't know if Dan was going to, I guess Dan's not going to talk about that?
I don't know.
Apparently not.
I think we're all agreeing what we're doing, so.
I don't think we need any discussion, no.
Okay, probably not.
You just need a motion.
It's late.
Yeah, I did make a motion.
Just a motion? Okay, sure. Madam Mayor, I move that we authorize the town to enter into a contract with Strategic Government Resources, an executive recruitment firm, to render services in connection with our with filling the next contract for a town manager.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And now we will move to subsection C about discussion and possible action of creation of a new task force for sustainable Rocky Hill.
Yeah, so Madam Mayor, as we all know in this chamber, that we joined Sustainable City as a town last year, and we joined that organization because it supports a lot of different ideas. A lot of people think it's about the environment, but they do everything from like equity to other things, and it has been a very active organization in our town, especially with our consultant joining Pam. I know, Madam Mayor, you are very involved with that group with a lot of volunteers. It's a very enthusiastic group, and they're looking at a lot of different things, including like, a Heritage Day and Diwali celebrations and things like that. So it has been a very busy, group, that particular group, and it has gotten to a point, I think, where we probably have the need, because of the commitment we have made with this kind of informal group, to actually formalize it and create some sort of a task force where we can give some shape to this kind of informal group.
Yeah, so just to sort of piggyback on that, we have this tremendous group of volunteers who have been meeting with Pam Roach on a weekly basis. And they come from all different backgrounds and expertise. And if you're familiar with the Sustainable CT model, basically it lists actions that, as you mentioned, run the gamut. And it seems as if there is a member on this volunteer group who has an interest in, the variety of actions, whether it's solar panels or, energy or equity or art, housing. And they're trying to structure themselves. That's the best I can kind of say it. And so I went to town manager and asked, is there a process where we can sort of formalize this group? And I think the last thing we want to do is, create more subcommittees, because that means a staff member who's already serving on one or two subcommittee, well, not a subcommittee, but a committee or commission, just has another evening pulled away from them. But there is an opportunity to form a task force. And if you look at the POCD, it does make reference to having a sustainable task force. It's something that we have not done. We have PIC, and PIC isn't really a regulatory body, but they sort of oversee, the POCD, and they make reports up to P&Z, and then they make reports to us sometimes. But I think it is time to give this group a sense of place and to a record, so that I think one of the things they struggle with is they're just starting to put together agendas. And as you mentioned, Pam, who was just here, oversees the group. But they don't really have, a secretary to keep minutes, and they want to start doing all of these things. I presume that at some point they may actually need funding to carry out some of the initiatives that they want to do. And so for, really just those basic reasons, I think it makes sense to at least look into the formation and go from there.
So this would just be the start of getting that idea. Do we have a template in mind, or is it just the beginning of the process of how we might structure that?
Yeah, I don't think it has to be anything different than what normally exist. I know that John spoke with council about, the formalities of putting something together. So, we could just direct that we put together a task force and sort of leave it with Pam to determine, all right, how is your group going to be formed? Who will be your members? And then we could appoint that membership. I don't know, Chris, to your point, I mean, how much detail we have to put into this, like what, but we can certainly ask legal counsel to prepare, guidance on how to move forward. And
did you want it to be part of the PIC committee?
I think whatever's
Independent from that, because basically they would probably be following the guidelines of Sustainable Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to meet some of the goals in order to accumulate enough points to get, I guess they go bronze, silver, and gold.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that'd be basically their charge would be to at least within a certain time period, or even try to get Rocky Hill to accumulate enough points to be sustainable bronze, and then work towards silver and so on. And that way there. So I don't think that you need to formalize anything where I think Sustainable Connecticut probably has a handbook to follow.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure they do. Yeah.
So a question, do they would benefit by us getting this grant we approved earlier, applying, right? If we're doing the trash thing, sustainable.
Oh, absolutely.
So we would
yeah.
gain bronze status just by doing that?
Well, you wouldn't gain bronze status, but
If it's in their guidelines that we're doing something that ties into this grant, yes, it would.
you get action points. And those points add up to certain medals.
Sounds like this group could play a role in the educational component of this new
Absolutely.
program. Yeah, that sounds like it'd be right up their
And
alley.
to that point, there are a couple of kids who actually serve on it, high school kids. I think there are a lot of different things that could be accomplished, that.
Yeah, it almost like a catch-all, right? This whole, people, when they hear like sustainable Rocky Hill, they think like environment. But I mean, that when I've introduced this idea to people around town, they are like, oh, it's like an environmental initiative. But it's not really. It's like, it's a lot of things. And you, like you said, and actions, like all these different actions, you could still kind of. So one of the things is like what we did today, maybe it falls under that catch-all.
It's very complex.
Yeah.
It's really, and I guess this is why I bring it to you, is because as I observe these meetings, I see the complexity in what Pam is trying to achieve, and I see the eagerness in the volunteers, but I don't see the structure.
Yeah.
Right, and I just think that they need a little bit more of a formal structure.
So should we leave it that we have our town attorneys come over, give us some guides with the target of voting at our next town council meeting? Excuse me, is that kind of the plan, you think, or?
What did you want to say?
I was just saying, I think it's a good idea because one of the things about the Sustainable Connecticut program is that it's open to, I believe, anybody in town. It doesn't have to have anything to do with the municipality at all. However, if someone has a good idea, taking your good idea and then navigating it through the process can be a challenge. So this could potentially be an interface for other people who have a good idea, they want to see it carried out, and now they've got experts, people who've been through it to help guide them. Even it might just be a number of conversations, or it might be some more consistent help. It's a way of amplifying the mission of that program without us picking projects. We have a resource available to help people in town who want to accomplish those types of things. So I think it's a good idea.
You want to say something, Bill?
No. Just processing here.
So are we knighting them tonight?
No, but I think to Jeff's point, why don't we just see, because I think we need to put in place, this is not a regulatory body, number one, what our expectations are of them, that kind of stuff. We could use a little legal, just a little quick
Do we have
briefing.
And just think, there are the towns, we've got the list of towns that are certified, right? There's silver and bronze. Maybe we could find somebody who's a silver or a corresponding town. I mean, maybe Pam knows this already, who knows? But see if we can borrow somebody else.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. So we don't need a motion on that. We'll just get going. Okay, let's go to the mayor's report, and I essentially have nothing, but if I don't mention the parade committee will not be happy. So the Memorial Day parade is coming up, and we really would love everyone to participate. So if you don't have a float in already and you want to march with us, please reach out to either the Chamber of Commerce or Rita at Parks and Rec. And then one other thing I want to tell you, the Rocky Hill Greater Together Community Fund is looking for letters of interest from nonprofits who want to do things that benefit the community. So essentially, Greater Together was awarded $25,000, and they are now accepting ideas from the community. So as long as you are a nonprofit, or they do mention if you're individuals and you have some type of municipal status, I'm not quite certain what that means, but I'm going to give you ways to reach out to this group. So you could email Rocky Hill Community Fund at gmail.com, and you can also learn about what's going on with this, in a more broader sense at www.h as in Harry, F as in Frog, P as in Peter, G as in Goat, so hfpg.org/Rocky Hill, C as in Cow, F as in Frank. And that's my report.
I'd just like to mention a couple of employees at the library won some awards for some work that they've done. Mary sent me over a little write-up, so I'll just read that off to her. But library staff members Jennifer Zapula and Karine Green will be recognized for their accomplishments in design, marketing, and publicity at an upcoming Connecticut Library Association conference. Jennifer won in the electronic category for a virtual library visit for first and second grade video. The committee, which included professional design/artists, noted that the video was a wonderful way of continuing to engage your community during COVID. And Corinne won in the small library category for the library's 1,000 Tales and Tales display. The committee complimented Corinne on her detailed creativity and amazing work. So they sent over some bookmarks that spells out some of the awards, as well as other activities going on. Part of Jennifer put together about a 10-minute video to promote the library to first and second graders during the COVID period. And they developed a bear character named Cora. So I think Cora
is adorable.
Is becoming very popular among the first and second graders. So tomorrow I'll send the attachment associated with that video so that you can watch it and become a fan of Cora. Because I guess people come to the library, kids come to the library now looking for her. Around the town hall, you can see that they're been doing a lot of work associated with the sidewalks, replacing some of the cracks and items that came in disrepair. So it's all part of the plan of paving the parking lot this summer. So this is the first phase, doing the sidewalks. Then also last week, part of the Eversource tree trimming process, they actually hired some sort of arborist to come in and work on that. I believe it's an elm tree out next to the fire association, so it sort of got a trim, getting a lot of the dead wood taken away and so on. So that was fixed up a bit. The health district is planning a COVID booster clinic here at the community center on June 8th. I guess it's in the beginning phases, but there is a sign-up sheet at the community center for that. So that's June 8th for those that want to get a booster shot associated with, for COVID. The state legislature today and tomorrow is reviewing probably a 673-page budget associated with the town. And one of the items in there is still to pay the fire departments that go out on the highway on a call relating to an accident. The amount was dropped from $700 down to $500. And one of the phrases on page 97 is within available appropriations.
Oops.
So if there's available appropriations, then we'll get $500 for every time that the fire department responds to a call on the highway. And hopefully that will get passed by May 4th. Also, it looks like the governor and the Democratic leadership in the Senate has come up with an agreement on the car tax, where the government proposed 29 mils. I think the current amount is 45 mils, and I guess the agreement is dropped down to the maximum amount you can charge on a car for car tax is 32.46 mils. So
Is that for all ages? I mean, are they antique cars or, I mean, are they subject to the same?
oh, well, I think when you get into antique cars, isn't that a flat rate, like 500?
Oh, yeah.
Something like that. So at this hour, Ed, let's just say all cars get charged 32.4%. Then we can do a research on it, and by the time the grant gets approved or disapproved, we'll have an answer to it. But no, so if we left it at the proposed rate right now at 35.6, I think it would be a reduction of about 3.14 mils on cars. So I think when we do our resolution to establish the budget as well as the mill rate, we'll have two mill rates, one for real estate and personal property, and one for cars. And then the difference between the two mill rates, Mona will budget in as money anticipated from the state
revenue
to make up the difference. And supposedly they're budgeting $100 million to fund those towns, because I guess it's going from 30 towns to maybe over 100 towns that will be affected by this mill rate. So
Before the July 1st, 2022 starting fiscal year?
Yep.
I thought I read some things it wasn't going to start until the following one, but it's going to be this coming one. Okay.
that's what I believe.
Okay.
But as I said, once they pass everything, then we'll know what to do. But that was what was in the newspaper last week. And then we also did get something from
Cost.
saying the same thing. Okay. And they also, the legislature passed allowing remote and hybrid meetings to continue. They were supposed to end April 30th, but they voted to continue them on, and there's no sunset date. So municipalities can continue having remote, hybrid, and in-person meetings. And then again, a reminder, Thursday, the 5th at 5:30, another budget workshop, including the Board of Ed's coming in for that, as well as CIP and some employee benefits and so on. And then again, remember the charter says the town has to adopt its budget by the third Monday in May, which is 2 weeks from today. Yeah, and that's it.
Go ahead. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Night, everyone.